As I looked at Kevin's mother, laughing heartily, I couldn't help but frown at her lack of class. Kevin's sister seemed taken aback, her face paling as I let out a small chuckle. Oops, could it be true? I wondered silently. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 54 years old this year. I divorced my ex-husband when our daughter Jade was just 3. The reason for our split was irreconcilable differences. My ex-husband was unemployed and spent his time drinking. Despite my repeated efforts to talk to him, he never changed. Naturally, our finances were always strained, and I decided I didn't need that kind of family life. We divorced without any child support or alimony. Since then, it's been just Jade and me. I was a housewife until the divorce, and once I had to raise Jade alone, I began working tirelessly. I started with piecework at home, making ends meet despite the constant struggle. Sometimes, with only a day left until payday, I would go without eating to ensure Jade had enough. Through all these hardships, I managed to raise Jade until she became an adult. Now that Jade has started working, I have more free time. I've channeled my experience into creating handmade products, which have now turned into a successful business. My personal life has also seen changes, notably Jade's engagement. She started dating Kevin, her supervisor at work, who is 5 years her senior. From the photos Jade showed me, Kevin seemed like a fine young man. Unlike her father, Kevin appears to be serious and responsible. I'm happy that Jade has found someone who makes her happy. Life is at a turning point for me too, and I decided it was time to live for myself. Then one evening after dinner, Jade approached me with a rare hesitance. "Mom, I have something to tell you," she began. Noticing her change in demeanor, I asked, "What's the matter? You seem different." "Actually, Kevin and I are getting married," Jade said timidly. "Really? That's wonderful." "Congratulations," I responded, relieved and pleased. Though I had never met Kevin, I hoped he was as good as he looked in the photos. Jade seemed relieved that I was supportive. Jade then suggested, "I was hoping you could meet Kevin this coming weekend." I agreed, wanting to meet the man who was to marry my daughter. We arranged to meet on Sunday. On the day of the meeting, I waited anxiously at home. Just before 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Jade and Kevin stood there. "Nice to meet you. I'm Kevin, Jade's fiancé," he greeted politely. I was relieved by his manners and invited them inside. Kevin seemed like a fine young man, and he brought along a gift of famous brand sweets, explaining how he and Jade met. "Kevin, stop it, you're embarrassing me," Jade said, blushing. The pleasant atmosphere shifted abruptly when Kevin asked, "By the way, is your father at work today?" I was startled by his question and noticed Jade's complexion change. She must have kept it a secret from Kevin that we were a single-parent family. In traditional households, single-parent families often face prejudice, and I couldn't help but feel that Jade's secrecy was misplaced. I braced myself to explain the situation to Kevin. "Jade might not have mentioned it, but I'm actually divorced from my husband. It's just been the two of us," I said. Kevin's smile faded for a moment, and his face went expressionless. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling a twinge of anxiety. Maybe it was a mistake for me to be the one to bring it up. But just as quickly as his expression had changed, Kevin was smiling again. "It's nothing, please don't worry about it," he said, his smile returning. I tilted my head, confused by the sudden shift in his demeanor. I couldn't bring myself to ask any more questions at that moment. The wedding preparations continued smoothly, and Jade seemed excited, often asking me for my opinion on things like her dress. "What kind of dress should I choose, Mom? What do you think would be nice?" she would ask. "Well, I think your favorite would be perfect," I replied, though I was somewhat distracted. Kevin's expression from that day kept replaying in my mind, especially the moment when his face went blank. I couldn't shake the feeling that his family might have strong views about single-parent households. So, I asked Jade, "Did Kevin say anything about us being a single-parent family on the way home that day? Do you think his family might be opposed to the marriage?" Jade looked puzzled. "He didn't say anything special, Mom. Are you worrying too much?" Her reassurances did little to ease my concerns, and unfortunately, my fears proved true. One night, as soon as Jade came home, she called my name with a somber expression. I was startled and asked, "Jade, why the long face? Did something happen?" Jade remained silent for a moment, an unusual sight given her typically optimistic nature. Eventually she spoke, though it was clear she struggled with her words. "Actually, Kevin's family isn't happy about our marriage," Jade said with a downcast look. "They're upset because we're a single-parent family. They think Kevin might have a hard time because we're poor and from a single-parent background. I felt a pang of sympathy for Jade. That's awful. It must be incredibly painful to hear such things from the in-laws. I asked her seriously, did Kevin's mother actually say that? Jade nodded silently, confirming my worst fears. I was enraged by what I'd heard. It was infuriating to think that we were being judged as poor simply because we're a single-parent family. Yes, we've had our struggles, but we've worked hard and built a decent life. I've worked as hard as anyone to provide for Jade. Then Jade revealed something even more shocking. Kevin's sister said a lot of awful things too, she confessed, her voice filled with sadness. She claimed that we're just after Kevin's money and that there's no way they could accept us as family. It's really hurtful. Jade's face looked incredibly lonely and disheartened. I could see how deeply those words must have affected her. It was appalling to hear such terrible judgments about me, especially when they haven't even met me. I could barely believe Kevin's family could be so harsh. What did Kevin say about all of this? I asked Jade, recalling Kevin's expression when he visited our home. His face had gone expressionless, and I wondered if it was because he was anticipating his family's reaction. It seemed clear that his family held strong prejudices against single-parent households. I began to worry about what the future held for Jade and me. But then Jade reassured me. Kevin defended me. After all, I work at the same company as Kevin, so it's absurd to think I'd ask him for money. I felt a wave of relief. If Kevin was on Jade's side, that was reassuring. I murmured to myself that Kevin's support was crucial. If he had sided with his family, I would have been deeply concerned about Jade's future. She would likely face ongoing snide remarks from her in-laws and feel marginalized. However, with Kevin standing by her, things might improve. A few days later, Jade brought up the idea of a meeting with Kevin's family. "Mom, I want to have a face-to-face meeting with Kevin's family before the wedding," she said. "I'm really sorry to ask, but it seems Kevin's mother insisted. She said that it's common sense for your mother to meet her future in-laws at least once." Although Jade apologized for the inconvenience, I agreed to meet Kevin's family for the marriage greetings. I wasn't thrilled about it, but it seemed proper. On the day of the meeting, Jade and I went to a restaurant near Kevin's family home. The choice of restaurant had been explained by Jade. "According to Kevin's mother, we can't invite you to their home until we're officially married. There's a fancy restaurant nearby that should suffice." The restaurant, chosen by Kevin's mother, was an upscale venue costing $300 per person for a meal. I occasionally visited it for business but rarely for personal reasons. I was puzzled by Kevin's mother's choice. When Jade had first met Kevin's family, his mother had chosen a nearby cafe. Moreover, Jade ended up paying for Kevin's mother's tea, though Kevin later reimbursed her. I couldn't understand why Kevin's mother was so condescending, especially considering we were the ones invited for the marriage greeting. I couldn't help but frown at the situation. If I, as Jade's mother, refused to attend, it would be Jade who would be blamed for the perceived rudeness. After the marriage, she might feel even more out of place, and that was a problem I wanted to avoid. So reluctantly, I accepted the invitation. I applied light makeup for the occasion. Although I usually wear full makeup for work, I thought it best to keep it understated today. I also chose much plainer clothes than usual. Flashy attire might give the impression of being a big spender, especially among the in-laws, and given the rumors that I was after Kevin's money, it seemed wise to dress modestly. With this in mind, Jade and I entered the fancy restaurant, where we were escorted to a private room. Inside, Kevin and his family were waiting. Jade's mother, "Thank you so much for coming today," Kevin greeted us politely. "Thank you for the invitation," I replied, expressing my gratitude. I then turned to Kevin's parents and sister, who greeted us with condescending smirks. It was clear we weren't welcome. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. My name is Charlotte, and I'm Jade's mother. I look forward to getting to know you," I said cautiously, bracing myself. Kevin's mother smirked and responded, "I don't particularly feel like looking forward to it." Kevin admonished his mother, but she remained unfazed. "After all, being from a single-parent family is problematic, isn't it? You must be struggling with money." "Even your clothes are so plain," she said, looking me up and down before snorting disdainfully. It seemed my decision to dress modestly had backfired. Kevin's sister joined in with snide remarks, laughing, "You could have married someone more decent." Kevin really drew the short straw, didn't he? Taking on a poor mother and daughter. I was irritated by her comments. Such remarks were incredibly rude, especially for a first meeting. However, disrupting Jade's marriage was not an option. With a sigh, I reluctantly took my seat, trying to keep my composure despite the uncomfortable situation. I chose not to retort despite my irritation. The in-laws seemed amused as they watched me while Jade looked at me with concern. Kevin appeared slightly angry, his brow furrowed at his family's lack of manners, but his mother was in high spirits. "We've reserved a course meal for today. It's $300 per person," she announced excitedly to her daughter. "I'm really looking forward to it. The meals here are quite expensive, so we must make the most of it." Her enthusiasm was palpable, and Kevin's father nodded in agreement. After a while, the staff brought out the dishes, a colorful array of amuse-bouches presented as 3 different types on a single plate. They all looked delicious, but to my dismay, only water was placed in front of me. I was about to call the staff back, but they had already left. The solitary glass of water felt like a stark reminder of our status. Kevin was dumbfounded by the scene, and his sister, possibly aware of the slight, snickered. Jade noticed too, and said anxiously, "Mom." Kevin's mother, with a smirk, declared, "Oh, the poor can make do with water, right?" She burst into laughter, clearly enjoying the situation. I frowned at her lack of class. "What does this mean?" I asked, bewildered. Despite being invited to this restaurant, it seemed they had no intention of hosting us properly. My irritation grew as I realized the disrespectful intent behind their actions. Kevin's mother continued to mock me, her voice dripping with disdain. "Not only are you from a poor single-parent family, but you're also slow. We have no reason to welcome someone as worthless as you," she said, scrutinizing my outfit from head to toe before snorting derisively. Her husband nodded in agreement, as if it were only to be expected. "It's shameful to be a single parent. A woman abandoned by her husband is nothing but flawed," he added with a burst of laughter. His assumptions were baseless and unilateral, but he didn't seem to care. I found his comments truly unacceptable. Kevin's sister joined in the mockery, laughing merrily. "I wouldn't want to end up like her, working for low wages. It's really pathetic to have given up on femininity," she said, looking down on me as she spoke. The whole situation was painful and humiliating, but I struggled to maintain my composure for Jade's sake. I felt a pang of sympathy as I saw Jade's face. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. She must have felt responsible for putting me in this difficult situation. Jade was visibly downcast, and I had reached my limit of patience. I couldn't remain silent after being demeaned like this. It was time to stand up for myself. Enough already with the gaining up and bad-mouthing. "Aren't you ashamed as adults?" Kevin shouted, his voice filled with frustration. I was taken aback by his sudden outburst in my defense. Jade and I were both shocked by Kevin's anger towards his family. His face was flushed, and he was clearly upset. However, his family remained unmoved. His mother continued to laugh joyfully, saying, "There's no need to defend poor people. Why are you so angry?" His father nodded in agreement, as if to say Kevin's words had no impact at all. I was appalled by his parents' lack of empathy. It seemed clear that they were lacking in basic decency. As my irritation boiled over, I decided it was time for a counterattack. I had an ace up my sleeve that might surprise them. At that moment, Kevin's sister began staring intently at my face. I accidentally glared back at her, and she muttered something to herself. Suddenly, her face went pale as she seemed to recognize me. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle at her reaction. She trembled as she looked at me, clearly rattled by the realization. Noticing her condition, her father asked in confusion, "What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange." The mother also seemed surprised and expressed concern. "Oh no, you're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling unwell?" Despite her words, her daughter's trembling didn't stop. It was clear that she had made a connection. Quietly, she asked her father, "Dad, the company you work for is Thompson Handicrafts, right?" She stared at him, seeking confirmation. Thompson Handicrafts is a small to medium-sized company with about 100 employees, and I was familiar with it because it's related to my work. Her father laughed off the question. "What's with the sudden curiosity?" "I may not look it, but I work hard as the head of the sales department," he boasted. "And through my connections, I even got you a job at our company. You should be grateful," he added with a hearty laugh. It was clear that his comments had defeated and disheartened her. Her father, puzzled, asked, "But why are you mentioning this? Are you trying to boast about your full-time position? This poor woman is probably just a temp worker," he sneered, looking down at me with disdain. I silently vowed that he would regret his words. She sighed and began to explain. Dad, don't you know who our company's clients are? Her father looked puzzled. Our clients? Kevin's mother, a full-time homemaker, wore a blank expression, seemingly unable to grasp the situation. She continued, though with some difficulty, I've met Jade's mom before at the company. She was wearing heavier makeup then, so I didn't recognize her immediately. Her father seemed confused. What do you mean, inside the company? I remember the faces of all employees, including part-timers, but I don't recall such an old lady. I frowned at being called an old lady, but he seemed preoccupied with other thoughts. Hearing the mention of the company, he appeared to be desperately trying to recall something. I realized it was no surprise he didn't remember me, as we had never interacted directly. She continued apologetically, Jade's mom, I'm truly sorry for everything. The parents grew agitated. Why apologize? There's no need to say sorry to someone so poor, said the mother dismissively. Exactly. Don't you have any pride, apologizing to a poor person like this? Her father yelled. Jade, glaring fiercely at her parents, said, Dad, Mom, Jade's mom is actually very wealthy, much wealthier than you. What did you say? Her father demanded, his eyes widening in disbelief. Her mother, equally stunned, shrieked, How could you say such a thing? Jade responded calmly, Jade's mom is the president of the company. I've served her tea in the company's reception room. You know greenbags? At the mention of greenbags, her father froze, then slowly turned his head towards me, his face paling. I couldn't help but chuckle. Greenbags was a brand Thompson Handicrafts had recently collaborated with. Kevin's mother gasped, Greenbags? That's the brand with stores and department stores. Even my bag is from there. She glanced at her bag nervously, which I had noticed earlier. As we entered the private room of the restaurant, I had spotted her holding the bag carefully under her chair. It was a familiar sight. She was using it despite the restaurant's high-end etiquette. I chuckled softly and remarked, I'm honored that you're using my brand. It's a magazine freebie, isn't it? Her face turned bright red as she looked down, clearly embarrassed. It seemed she was mortified that her favorite bag was revealed to be a promotional item. I swiftly retrieved my business card from my cardholder and presented it. I'm Charlotte Green, the representative of Greenbags. The parents stared at the card in shock. Her father was visibly trembling as he examined it, while her mother looked equally stunned. I addressed them coolly. It seems a collaboration with Thompson Handicrafts might no longer be feasible. What a pity. His face registered immediate alarm. Why? That was the project President Thompson was most invested in. If it falls through, what will happen to our company? His voice quivered with fear. His wife, confused, asked, What's going on? I explained, Thompson Handicrafts has been struggling financially. The interest in handmade crafts has waned significantly. When I was younger, my mother would sew everything by hand, but now, cheap mass-produced items are the norm. Thompson Handicrafts has been hit hard by this shift, and their sales have been declining year after year. President Thompson proposed the collaboration as a last-ditch effort to revitalize the company. Initially, I wasn't very interested in working with a small to medium-sized company like Thompson Handicrafts, but President Thompson's passion was compelling, and I eventually agreed to collaborate on producing bags. However, that's no longer relevant. The father continued to tremble, clearly frightened by the news. Ignoring his fear, I added, There's little benefit in continuing the collaboration. I was initially swayed by President Thompson's enthusiasm, but it's not a priority for me anymore. I fixed a cold stare on the father, who was sweating under my gaze. Suddenly, he began to profusely apologize. Despite his desperate pleas, Jade and Kevin looked on in surprise at his deep apology. I'm truly sorry, he said, bowing deeply several times. His apologies seemed to be more about protecting his own interests than expressing genuine remorse. From my perspective, they held little weight. I spoke with an icy tone. An apology now, after all the disdain you've shown towards Jade and me? Do you really think an apology can fix everything? Your mindset is incredibly naive. Realizing his apologies wouldn't alter the situation, he quickly stood up, clearly more interested in saving face than offering genuine contrition. His wife, still puzzled, addressed me with a flippant smile. We're going to be family, so you can forgive us, right? I'm a big fan of greenbags, and since we're family now, I should be able to get some products for free, shouldn't I? I was so taken aback by her audacity that I couldn't immediately respond. Kevin interjected with a grimace. Mom, that's entirely unreasonable. Her request was beyond belief, yet she seemed unfazed by the reaction. Why not? You must have plenty of stock. It wouldn't hurt to give away a few items, she persisted, both her husband and daughter watching in disbelief. I replied flatly, our products are not given away for free, especially to those who are still strangers to us. Her frustration was evident. But Jade and Kevin are getting married. That makes us family, right? You're a president. You should be providing financial support, she said nonchalantly, still harboring her earlier disdain. It was clear she hadn't reflected on her behavior at all. Kevin, unable to contain his anger, rebuked her. Mom, you've changed your attitude just because you found out she's a president. Aren't you ashamed? His mother laughed it off, unbothered. Presidents have money to spare, right? Surely you can share a little with us. I quietly told her, even if Jade and Kevin get married, I have no intention of associating with you. Her surprise was palpable as she approached me. Don't say that. Once Kevin gets married, we'll be family. Giving away a bag or two wouldn't hurt. I was truly irritated by her persistence. Just as I was about to respond, Kevin stepped between us, his face troubled. Kevin, I said, noting his discomfort. I knew you were the president, Kevin's father said, looking regretful after Kevin's confession. I kept silent because I was sure my parents would trouble you if they found out. Kevin glared at his father. You knew I would have acted like Mom if you'd have told me. What kind of attitude is that towards your own son? Keep this up and you'll be disowned. Kevin's words shocked Jade, who looked flustered. Kevin continued resolutely, I'd rather be disowned. I'm cutting ties with you. I want to cherish Jade from now on, and I don't need a family that disregards her and her mother. His mother broke down in tears on the spot while his father and sister stared at Kevin, stunned. They likely never imagined he would sever ties with them. Their reaction was a harsh consequence of their own actions. Please live with regret for the rest of your lives, I added coldly. I imagine you'll face many hardships in the future. Jade then joined in, stating firmly, we won't even inform you if we have children. Please spare us the agony of having you as grandparents. The room filled with her anguished cry. Kevin's quiet remark, we're done being a family, only deepening their distress. His father and sister, now tearful, seemed to want to plead with us, but we ignored them. After leaving the restaurant, I later learned that Kevin's father and sister had been fired from their company the day after the incident. Despite President Thompson's attempts to persuade me, I decided to cancel our collaboration. I couldn't work with a company that employed people like Kevin's family. When I explained the situation to President Thompson, he was furious. It turned out he had a daughter about Jade's age and couldn't forgive Kevin's family for their actions. The collaboration with Thompson Handicrafts was crucial, and their behavior had jeopardized it. Kevin's father, already advanced in age, and his sister, who had only been a part-time worker through her father's connections, faced bleak prospects for reemployment. Additionally, Kevin's mother, a full-time homemaker, was now cut off by Kevin, who was their sole breadwinner. Desperate, Kevin's in-laws came to her company to negotiate. Please collaborate with Thompson Handicrafts. Even if collaboration isn't possible, provide financial support. Our family is suffering. Isn't helping each other what family does? They pleaded. Their plea was ironic after all the disdain they had shown us. It was laughable, and their desperation only underscored their hypocrisy. I firmly told them that neither collaboration nor financial support would be possible. Kevin has cut ties with you as well, hasn't he? Please leave now. Despite my clear refusal, the parents tried to cling to me, but I repeated my warning. Do not appear in front of me ever again. If you do, I will call the police. The mention of the police seemed to get through to them. The father pleaded, anything but the police. We won't come again, and they reluctantly left, their clothes disheveled and dirty. It was a stark contrast to the way they once looked down on others. As for Kevin's sister, I heard she had become reclusive, struggling to find work and facing bleak prospects. She rarely leaves her room and seems resigned to a future filled with uncertainty. 3 years have passed since that day. Now, I live with Jade and Kevin. Ideally, as newlyweds, they would have their own place, but Kevin suggested we stay together for Jade's safety in case of emergencies. Kevin and Jade manage most of the housework since my work keeps me busy. I am truly grateful for their support. Recently, Jade approached me with a serious look which made me anxious. But then she smiled brightly, saying, "Mom, it looks like I'm going to be a mother." She lovingly stroked her belly, and my heart swelled with joy. "Congratulations, Jade," I said, hugging her tightly. Kevin, too, was beaming with happiness. "Though we know challenges lie ahead, I am confident we can face them together. I look forward to meeting my grandchild and embracing our bright future." A smile naturally spread across my face as I imagined the happiness to come.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm 33 years old. I am a housewife, and as I stand here today, I can't help but think about my life. It's like a web, made up of different threads of duty, expectations, and the quiet sacrifices made by the people we love. My story isn't just about me. It's also about my father. He was a kind and gentle man who got pulled into the demands of my married life without really realizing it. 6 years ago, life seemed simpler. I lived in a small, cozy house on the edge of the city with my husband, Jack, and his mother, Cheryl. You might think this sounds like a happy family setup, but there was a problem. My place in that house came with an unspoken rule. My father had to pay for everything. Every month, he quietly took care of all our bills. He never complained or showed any discomfort, but I could see how hard it was for him. Living with Jack and Cheryl wasn't easy. It was like walking on a tightrope. Cheryl, with her strong personality and sharp words, never hid what she expected. She would often say, "It's better this way, Lauren. Your father can afford it, and it keeps the family comfortable." Her tone always made it clear that this wasn't really a request, but more like an order. As for Jack, he didn't say much. He just stood by, letting things happen. His silence was loud, almost as if he agreed with everything that was going on without needing to say it. Even though it was tough, I loved Jack and believed in the commitments I made when we got married. That's what kept me there, in that house, hoping things would somehow get better. Every day, I wished for a change. I wanted a sign that things could be different, that we could be a real family, one bound by love, not money. But deep down, I knew that I was holding on to a dream that wasn't real. It was a fantasy, and it was slowly being crushed by the weight of unspoken rules and fake smiles. Now, as I sit here thinking about those years, I realize how much they shaped me. They taught me about being strong, about the bittersweet truths of love and family. But the hardest part of my life was still ahead of me. It all began with a phone call that changed everything. The day my father died was the day my world fell apart. I remember every detail like it happened yesterday. The phone call was urgent, and I rushed to the hospital. The halls there were cold and empty, as if they were grieving with me. My father had suffered a sudden heart attack, and even though the doctors tried, he was gone before I had the chance to say goodbye. In the days after his death, I was surrounded by deep grief. I didn't just lose my father. I lost the very foundation of my life. He had been my rock, the quiet strength that helped me through every hard moment. Without him, I felt lost. Everything changed after that. My father had always been there for me, and now he was gone. I wasn't just mourning him, but also the safety and stability he had provided. It was like my entire world had shifted, and I wasn't sure how to go on without him. I felt lost, like I was drifting through a sea of emotions that I couldn't control. During this difficult time, I received a call from my father's lawyer. He asked me to come to his office to talk about my father's will. It felt strange to think about something like a will when I was still grieving. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, everything seemed cold and organized, the complete opposite of how I felt. I sat there in silence as the lawyer explained what my father had left for me, his only child. He told me that my father had left me $80 million and a beautiful house in one of the best neighborhoods in the city. The amount of money was so large that it didn't seem real. I could hardly believe it. A part of me even wished there had been some kind of mistake. I went home feeling the heavy weight of this inheritance on my shoulders. As soon as I stepped through the door, I noticed that something had changed. Cheryl, my mother-in-law, who usually looked at me with cold, calculating eyes, now had a different look, one of greed. She cornered me in the living room, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Lauren," she started, but soon her tone changed, becoming firm and demanding. "You need to transfer the $80 million to my account and give the house to Jack. It's what's best for the family." Her demand hung in the air like a dark cloud. I was still struggling with the pain of losing my father, and now my mother-in-law wasn't offering me any comfort or support. Instead, she saw this moment as a chance to take something for herself and her son. I couldn't believe the nerve she had to ask me to give away everything my father had left me. In that moment, I realized that their kindness had never been real. It had only lasted as long as my father could provide for us. "I can't do that, Cheryl," I said, my voice sounding stronger than I felt inside. "That money and the house were my father's final gift to me. I won't let anyone take that from me." Cheryl's face twisted in shock, and then her expression turned to rage. She stepped closer to me, her voice now a threatening whisper. "You will regret this decision, Lauren. I promise you that." As I stood there, refusing to give in to her, the house suddenly felt smaller. The walls seemed to close in on me, and I could feel that a storm was coming. I had stood up to Cheryl for the first time, but I didn't know what the cost would be. I knew that my life was about to be turned upside down, and I braced myself for whatever would come next. The fallout from my decision was quick and harsh. In just a few days, the home I shared with Jack and Cheryl became a battlefield. The air was thick with hostility, and the silence between us was full of accusations. Jack, the man I had once loved and trusted, now looked at me with confusion and resentment. He seemed torn between his mother's manipulations and the life we had built together. Things reached their breaking point one cold morning when Jack handed me divorce papers. His hands were steady, but he couldn't meet my eyes. "Lauren, this is how it has to be," he mumbled, almost like he was talking to himself. His words felt like a dagger to my heart, already bruised from everything I had been through. I couldn't believe it had come to this, but deep down, I knew that this was the price I had to pay for standing up for myself. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just losing a husband. I was being thrown away because I no longer fit into the life they had planned for me. With a trembling hand, I signed the divorce papers. My signature was more than just ink on paper. It marked the end of one chapter of my life and the start of a new, uncertain one. As I packed my things to leave, Cheryl stood in the doorway, watching me with a satisfied smirk on her face. She couldn't hide the cruelty in her voice when she said, "You brought this on yourself." Her words stung, but I didn't respond. I just kept packing, knowing I was leaving behind a life where I was never really valued. Once the divorce was finalized, and I was officially on my own, I moved into the home my father had left me. It was a beautiful, large estate, very different from the small house I had just been pushed out of. Alone in this big house, with its long hallways and empty rooms, I struggled to find any sense of normalcy. The silence felt overwhelming at times, but I reminded myself that this was my new beginning, even if it felt strange and lonely. But life wasn't done throwing challenges at me. Not long after I moved in, I learned that Jack had been in a bad accident at work. He was a security guard and something went wrong, leaving him with a broken leg. He couldn't work anymore. The irony didn't escape me. He had once been strong and confident, but now he was out of a job and helpless. A few days later, Jack showed up at my doorstep, leaning on crutches. His face was full of desperation. He looked like a completely different person from the man I had once loved. "Lauren, I need help," he said, his voice quiet and uncertain. "I've made mistakes, but I'm in a bad place. I can't work, and I don't have anywhere else to go." I could see the pain in his eyes, and part of me wanted to help him. I could see he was hoping I would forgive him and help him pick up the pieces. But the wounds from our past were still too fresh. The betrayal was still too deep for me to overlook. I had learned the hard way that I needed to put myself first, no matter how much it hurt to say no. "I'm sorry, Jack," I said, my voice steady, though I felt a storm inside. "I can't. You made your choice, and now I have to make mine." As I closed the door on Jack, it felt like I was closing the door on my old life as well. The final connection to that painful chapter was gone. It was time for me to focus on rebuilding not just my home, but my entire life. The journey ahead was mine alone, and I knew I had to move forward, stronger and more determined than before. As I settled into my new reality, the quiet, empty rooms of the house my father left me no longer felt so lonely. Instead, they started to feel full of possibilities. This house, with its beautiful gardens and sunlit hallways, was a place where I could start over. It was where I would find myself again. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready. The struggles of my past had taught me to be resilient. Now, it was time for me to build a life on my own terms, without anyone else trying to control me. This was my chance to rise from the ashes, stronger and wiser, and create a future that truly belonged to me. I began to imagine a new purpose for my life, one that would not only help me heal, but also give back to others. I thought about creating a safe and welcoming place for elderly people who didn't have a home of their own. This idea was inspired by my father's dream of always wanting to help the community. He had a deep desire to give back, and I wanted to honor that. I decided to turn my estate into a home for the elderly. My goal wasn't just to provide them with a place to stay, but to build a lively and warm community where they could share their stories, wisdom, and laughter. I wanted it to be a place where people could feel at home and truly live out their golden years with joy. I put all my heart, energy, and resources into fixing up the estate. I worked on every room, making sure that each space felt comfortable and welcoming. Every small detail mattered, from the furniture to the decorations. I wanted the house to feel like a place full of warmth and kindness. The work was hard and tiring, but at the same time, it was incredibly rewarding. With every new thing I added to the home, I felt a bit of my old pain healing. The physical effort of renovating the house was also healing for my emotional wounds. As I worked day by day, I finally started to accept the end of my marriage and the betrayal that came with it. I realized that building this new home was not only creating a future for others, but also helping me move forward from my past. As the house neared completion, I started meeting the people who might move in. Each elderly person I spoke to had a unique story to share, and their faces showed a lifetime of experiences. There was hope in their eyes, and I could see they were looking forward to this new chapter in their lives. I listened closely to their stories, which were full of strength, resilience, and life lessons. Soon, the house started to fill with its new residents. The once empty rooms were now alive with conversation and laughter. One of the first residents, Mrs. Theresa May, stood out. She was an energetic 85-year-old with bright eyes and a love for storytelling. She quickly became the heart of our little community, sharing stories from her youth that were both funny and wise. Every evening, she would gather everyone in the common room, filling the space with laughter and sometimes even a few tears. One evening, while we were watching the sunset from the porch, Mrs. May turned to me and said, "It's all about making the most of every day, dear." Her words hit me deeply, reminding me that time is precious, and it's important to live every moment fully. In this new life, I found joy in the simple things. We shared meals together, celebrated birthdays, and spent time just listening to each other. The house was no longer just a building. It had become a living, breathing community. The people who lived there had created a home filled with love and connection, woven together by the shared experiences of their lives. In this vibrant community, I rediscovered myself. I was no longer tied down by the pain of my past, but instead, I embraced the future with hope. I was ready for whatever came next. My father's dream had come true, not just in the home itself, but in the community it had nurtured. By fulfilling this dream, I found healing, happiness, and a renewed sense of purpose in life. I had found a new purpose in life, and with it came a deep sense of peace. The simple act of helping others had given me a fresh start, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at home. As the seasons changed, so did my heart. The home for the elderly blossomed under my care, and with each passing day, I felt more joy and love surrounding me. My heart grew fuller with every laugh, every smile, and every story shared by the people who now lived there. One day, while doing something as routine as visiting the local bank to manage the finances for the home, fate had a surprise in store for me. As I stepped up to the bank manager's desk, I froze for a moment, recognizing a familiar face. "Scott," I said, my voice filled with surprise. It was Scott, my childhood friend. He sat behind the desk, looking every bit the professional, but with the same warm eyes and gentle smile that had once been a source of comfort to me when we were kids. Back in our school days, we had shared many happy memories together. Now here he was after all these years. "Lauren, it's been ages," he said, his voice full of genuine happiness. We started talking, catching up on everything we had missed over the years. It was like no time had passed at all. We laughed about old times, remembering how we used to race our bicycles down the neighborhood streets and spend afternoons talking about our dreams. Yet, we were no longer those carefree children. We had grown up, and our lives had taken very different paths. As time went on, our meetings at the bank became more frequent. Every time we met, our connection grew stronger. It wasn't long before Scott started visiting the home for the elderly, taking an interest in the work I was doing. His visits meant so much to me. He wasn't just being polite, he was genuinely interested in the residents, and he brought so much joy and laughter to everyone he met. Scott's calm and steady presence was a breath of fresh air for me. After all the difficult and painful relationships I had been through, it felt good to have someone who was kind, dependable, and caring. He didn't just listen to me. He truly engaged with me and the people in my life. The residents adored him, and he became a regular visitor, always brightening their days. One crisp autumn evening, we took a walk through the gardens of the home, as we often did. The air was cool, and the leaves were starting to change color, painting the ground in shades of orange and gold. As we walked, Scott suddenly stopped and turned to face me. His expression was serious but tender, and I could see that he had something important on his mind. "Lauren," he began, his hands nervously fidgeting with a small box he had pulled from his pocket. "I've seen you bring so much happiness to others, and you've brought so much happiness to me, too. I can't imagine a future without you in it. Will you marry me?" His words took my breath away. It wasn't just the proposal itself that surprised me, but how right it felt. Scott had been a part of my life for so long, first as a friend, and now as something much more.
He knew me in a way few people did.
He had seen me at my best and my worst, and yet he still wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. With tears in my eyes and a smile on my face, I answered him, "Yes, Scott." At that moment, I realized how far I had come. From heartbreak and loss, I had found not just a new purpose, but also a new love. Scott was a reminder that life can take unexpected turns, and sometimes those turns lead us to exactly where we are meant to be. I replied, my voice steady, but filled with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." In that moment, my heart felt full. I had found someone who truly saw me, loved me for who I was, and wanted to build a life with me. The simple word, yes, held so much meaning. It was not only a promise to Scott, but also a commitment to myself, to embrace happiness and love after all the pain and challenges I had faced. Our wedding was a simple yet beautiful affair. We chose to have it in the very gardens where Scott had proposed. Those gardens had become special to both of us, a place of peace and beauty. We invited the people who had become like family to meet the residents of the elderly home I had created, the staff, and a few close friends. The golden hues of the setting sun made the whole scene magical, as if the sky itself was blessing our union. As we stood under the fading light, Scott and I exchanged vows of love and commitment. It wasn't a grand event with lots of fanfare, but it was perfect. It was real, sincere, and full of heart. We promised to stand by each other through life's ups and downs, to always be kind, and to support one another. I knew, deep in my heart, that Scott was the partner I had always needed but had never expected to find. Life with Scott brought a sense of completeness I had never known before. It wasn't just about being happy. It was about feeling whole. Together, we faced the small challenges of everyday life, from fixing little things around the house to handling responsibilities at the elderly home. But no matter what came our way, we always tackled it together. Scott was supportive and kind, always offering a comforting word or a helping hand when I needed it. The house, which had once been a symbol of my fresh start, now became a symbol of our shared future. Every corner of the house seemed to reflect the love and happiness that had blossomed between us. The same halls that had once echoed with my loneliness were now filled with laughter, conversations, and the warmth of a loving home. I could see how much my life had transformed, and I was grateful for every step that had led me to this moment. Looking back on my journey, I realized how far I had come. From the dark days of despair and uncertainty after my father's death and my difficult divorce, to the joy and peace I now felt, it was an incredible transformation. Life had thrown many challenges my way, but each twist and turn had taught me something valuable. The pain I experienced in the past helped me appreciate the beauty and happiness of my life now. If I had never gone through those difficult moments, I might not have understood the value of what I had now. The tough times had made me stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the importance of love, kindness, and community. I realized that life is full of unpredictable twists, but each step along the way had brought me closer to where I was meant to be. The elderly home I had created also became a special part of our journey. It was more than just a place where people lived. It had become a thriving community. The residents were like family to me, and they had welcomed Scott into their hearts just as they had me. Our home was filled with laughter, stories, and love, not just from us but from everyone who lived there. The sense of belonging and connection made every day meaningful. I often found myself reflecting on the power of new beginnings. With every sunrise, I was reminded that life is full of endless possibilities. No matter what challenges or hardships come our way, there is always room for hope and growth. Change is not something to fear, but something to embrace with an open heart. I had learned that lesson the hard way, but I was grateful for it. Scott and I began to plan for our future together, always looking ahead with excitement. We dreamed of expanding the home for the elderly, making it even more of a sanctuary for those who needed it. We wanted to continue helping others, just as my father had always wanted. In a way, by living out this dream, I felt like I was keeping a part of my father's legacy alive. I knew he would have been proud of the life I had built and the choices I had made. Together, Scott and I shared a deep sense of purpose. It wasn't just about our love for each other, but also about the love we shared with the community around us. We had found a way to blend our personal happiness with a mission that gave our lives deeper meaning. Each day felt like a gift, filled with moments of joy and connection. As I think about the days ahead, I feel a sense of peace. I know that life will continue to bring challenges, but I also know that I have the strength to face them. With Scott by my side and a community that thrives on love and respect, I look forward to whatever the future holds. I am no longer afraid of what's to come because I have learned to embrace the changes and the opportunities that come with them. In the end, I am profoundly grateful for everything the good and the bad that brought me to this moment. Without the pain, I wouldn't have appreciated the beauty of my life now. With each new day, I am reminded of how far I have come, and I know that the journey ahead will be filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. Life is full of surprises, and I am ready for whatever comes next. I never thought my life would turn out like this. My name is Anna, and this is my story. I was born to farmers, good people who taught me the value of hard work from the time I could walk. Our days started early, before the sun came up, taking care of the animals and crops. Life was simple then. I would go to school, come home, and help out on the farm. Weekends were for spending time with family and catching up on chores. It was all I knew, and I was happy with it. But things changed after I graduated high school. My parents, bless them, wanted more for me than a life on the farm. One evening at dinner, my dad said, "Anna, we've been talking. Your mom and I think you should go to college." And just like that, my world got bigger. I packed my bags and moved to the city, a place so different from what I was used to that it felt like another world. College was an experience. The classes were interesting, but it was the people that really opened my eyes. Students came from all kinds of backgrounds, with dreams and plans I had never imagined. Then I met Scott in my third year. He was charming, confident, and so different from the farm boys back home. Scott seemed to know exactly what he wanted from life. "Life's too short to spend it working all the time," he'd say, lying on the grass outside the library. "We should enjoy it while we're young." I was hooked. He made life seem like an adventure, not just a list of chores. We started dating, and before I knew it, we were talking about getting married. When I told my parents, they were cautious. They wanted to meet Scott and get to know the man who had won my heart. After Scott's first visit to the farm, my dad said, "He seems nice enough, but there's something I can't put my finger on. Just be careful, Anna." I brushed off his concerns. What did my old-fashioned dad know about love? Scott was perfect, and our life was going to be perfect too. My parents, being the kind people they are, paid for our wedding and even bought us an apartment in the city. "We want you to have a good start," my mom said, her eyes misty. "Thanks, Mom and Dad," I said, hugging them tightly. "I promise I'll make you proud." As Scott and I stood at the altar, exchanging vows and rings, I thought my life was all set. I had a husband who I thought loved me, a good job in the city, and a bright future ahead. The first couple of years of our marriage seemed fine to me. Scott and I both worked in the city, and we settled into a routine. But looking back, I can see the signs that things weren't as perfect as I thought. "Do we really have to go to your parents' farm this weekend?" Scott would complain every time I suggested a visit. "It smells like manure, and your dad always wants me to help with something." I'd sigh and try to explain, "They're my family, Scott, and they've done so much for us." He'd grumble, "Fine, but I'm not shoveling any cow poop." I brushed it off, thinking he was just a city boy not used to farm life. I grew up with those smells and chores. But now I wonder if that was a red flag. 3 years into our marriage, I got pregnant. I was over the moon, and my parents were thrilled. "A grandchild," my mom squealed over the phone. "Oh, Anna, we're so happy for you." Scott, on the other hand, wasn't as excited. "A kid already? I guess that's okay." I figured he was just nervous and that he'd warm up to the idea of being a dad. My parents, as always, were incredibly supportive. They bought us a car and even paid for our vacations. I was so grateful, but Scott seemed to take it all for granted. "Of course they're helping us," he'd say. "That's what parents are supposed to do." When our son Peter was born, I fell in love with him instantly. But Scott struggled. He tried, but fatherhood didn't come easily to him. "Can't you keep that kid quiet?" he'd complain when Peter cried at night. "Some of us have to work in the morning." I held back my frustration, telling myself we were both just getting used to being parents. Life went on, and we visited the farm when we could, though Scott became more reluctant with each trip. "Your dad wants me to help fix the tractor again," he'd groan. "I'm not a mechanic." I'd watch my dad and Scott working together, my dad patiently showing him how to fix things while Scott fumbled with the tools, looking annoyed. Then, within a year, both of my parents passed away. I was heartbroken. "They're gone, Scott." I sobbed into his shoulder. "I can't believe they're really gone." He patted my back awkwardly and said, "It'll be okay. At least they left us the farm." His words shocked me. The farm, my family's legacy, and all Scott could think about was what we'd inherited. A few months later, Scott dropped a bombshell. "We should sell the farm," he said one night at dinner. "We could buy a big house in the city and live like royalty." I wanted to argue, to fight for my family's legacy, but I was so tired, worn down by grief and the challenges of being a mom. Wasn't I supposed to support my husband's decisions? "Okay," I said quietly, "if you think it's best." And just like that, with a few signatures on some papers, my family's history was sold to the highest bidder. The money went into our joint account, and Scott was overjoyed. "We're set for life, Anna," he said, thrilled. "No more working ourselves to the bone. We can do whatever we want now." I nodded and smiled, trying to push down the emptiness I felt inside. This was what Scott wanted, and as his wife, wasn't I supposed to support him? After selling the farm, life changed. The money from the sale gave us some comfort. I'll give Scott that. We didn't have to work as hard anymore. We both cut back to part-time hours, and for a while, it felt like we were living the dream. But as time passed, I started noticing things. Scott, who had never been much of a hard worker, seemed to lose all motivation. He'd quit jobs without a second thought, always with some excuse. "That boss was a jerk," he'd say, or "they expected too much." "I'm not a slave, you know." I tried to reason with him. "Scott, We can't live off the farm money forever. We need to think about the future. He'd just wave me off. Relax, Anna. We're set for life. Why work ourselves to death? Meanwhile, our son Peter was growing up quickly. He finished high school, then college, and soon he was working and living on his own. I was so proud of him, but I missed having him around. One day, I was reading the newspaper when a name jumped out at me. It was an article about a successful concrete plant owned by Scott's Uncle John.
Scott.
I called out, "Did you see this article about your Uncle John?" Scott's face darkened. "I don't want to hear about that old tyrant," he snapped. I knew the story, at least Scott's version of it. His parents had died when he was young, leaving him in the care of his uncle. Scott always said John had been controlling, trying to force him into the family business. He never listened to what I wanted, Scott had told me years ago. It was always about what he thought was best, so I left and started my own life. Looking at Scott now, lounging in his robe at 1 in the afternoon, I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story. "Maybe it's time to make peace," I suggested gently.
It's been years, Scott.
People change. Scott's reaction was instant and explosive. Make peace with that control freak? No way. Drop it, Anna. I let it go, but the whole thing left me feeling uneasy. There was so much anger, so much resentment in Scott's words. It made me wonder what else he was holding on to, what other parts of himself he was keeping hidden. One quiet Friday afternoon, I overheard Scott on the phone. His voice was short and cold. "I'm not interested in his life, and it doesn't concern me," he said sharply before hanging up. My curiosity got the better of me. "Who was that, honey?" I asked. Scott's face showed no emotion. "Hospital. My uncle's sick. If he dies, maybe I'll finally get something out of him." I was shocked. "Scott, that's a horrible thing to say." "He raised you?" "Yeah, and he made my life hell," Scott snapped. "I'm not going to see him. End of story." He picked up the remote and settled back into his chair. Something broke inside me. This wasn't the man I had married. This wasn't the person I thought I knew. Without saying a word to Scott, I went to the bedroom and called Peter. "Hey, sweetie," I said when he answered. "How would you feel about meeting your great uncles?" Peter was surprised but agreed quickly. An hour later, we walked into the hospital, my heart racing. The ICU was filled with the sound of beeping machines and soft voices. There, in a bed surrounded by monitors, was Scott's Uncle John. He looked small and weak, nothing like the controlling man Scott had described. When we introduced ourselves, his eyes filled with tears. "Anna, Peter," he said, his voice soft but warm. "I've wanted to meet you for so long." For the next hour, John told us his side of the story. He explained how he had taken Scott in after his parents died and raised him like his own. "I loved that boy," John said, his voice breaking. "I wanted him to have everything carry on the family business, have a good life. But Scott had other ideas." John went on to explain that Scott didn't want the responsibility. He said he didn't want to work hard like I did, staying up at night worrying about the business. As John spoke, I felt a sinking feeling. His words painted a picture I knew all too well. "Scott demanded I sell the business," John said, shaking his head. "He wanted me to give him a monthly allowance, an apartment, a car. He said I owed him a carefree life." I glanced at Peter, and I could see the same shock on his face. "I told him that's not how life works," John continued. "I begged him to stay and learn the business, but he just got angry. He said he'd find a rich wife and never have to work again." I sat in Uncle John's hospital room, and memories from the past 12 years flooded my mind. It was like I was finally seeing the truth. Scott had never kept a job for long. He always worked part-time, called in sick, and took lots of days off. I had always thought it was because he was stressed or just a free spirit, but now I understood. He would always say, "Life is for fun, Anna. Why work so hard?" A sick feeling hit me as I realized that Scott didn't marry me for love. He married me for my family's money, for the easy life he thought I could give him. I was just a way for him to get what he wanted, the rich wife he had promised his uncle he'd find. Tears filled my eyes as the truth sank in. Our life, our marriage, our family, it had all been built on a lie. Uncle John's weak voice pulled me from my thoughts. I'm so sorry, he said. I wanted to leave something for you and Peter, but I can't. It's okay, I said, squeezing his hand. We don't need anything. I had plans, John continued, sounding upset. A new project. It would have changed everything, but I ran out of time. Suddenly, John's face twisted in pain, and the machines around him started beeping urgently. A nurse rushed in. You need to leave, she said. A few days later, the call came Uncle John had passed away. When I told Scott, his reaction made my blood run cold. Finally, he exclaimed, grinning. Took the old bastard long enough. I stared at him, horrified. Scott, he was your uncle. He raised you. Scott waved me off. Yeah, so when's the funeral? Do I need to go? In the end, Scott didn't attend the funeral. Peter and I arranged it ourselves. It was a small, dignified service that I hoped would have made Uncle John proud. While I was mourning a man I had barely known, my husband was at home celebrating, calculating his new wealth. I overheard him on the phone when I got home, saying, "The factory's got to be worth at least $30 million. Can you believe it? I'm rich." I watched Scott strut around the house, bragging about his inheritance, and felt nothing but disgust. This wasn't the man I thought I'd married. He was a stranger in my husband's skin. Then things got even worse. One evening, Scott looked at me with cold eyes and said, "You know, Anna, you're getting kind of old for me. I think it's time for an upgrade." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Excuse me?" I asked. He shrugged, not even trying to look guilty. "You heard me. I'm rich now. I can do better." Over the next few weeks, Scott's behavior spiraled out of control. He stayed out late, coming home in the early morning, reeking of alcohol and perfume. More than once, I was left feeling like I had lost everything. I noticed lipstick stains on Scott's collar, and every time I confronted him, he'd brush me off. "Mind your own business," he'd say. "You should be grateful I come home at all." One night, as I lay awake, listening to him stumble in at 4 a.m., I realized something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this. I deserved better, but more importantly, I needed to know the truth about Scott, about the inheritance, and about the life I thought we had built together. One morning, after another night of Scott coming home at dawn, I'd had enough. "Where were you?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Scott rubbed his bloodshot eyes and narrowed them at me. "None of your damn business, Anna. You should be grateful I even come back at all." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Grateful? Is that what you think our marriage is?" He ignored my question, his eyes calculating. "How much is left from your parents' inheritance? We must have some savings, right?" The sudden change of topic caught me off guard.
What?
"Scott, we've spent it all. The accounts are empty." His face twisted with disgust. "Empty? You've got to be kidding me." He paced the room, muttering to himself, then turned to me, his eyes cold. "Well, I guess that's it then. I'm done here. Done with you." Before I could respond, the front door opened and Peter walked in, his eyes widening as he saw the tension in the room. Scott's demeanor shifted instantly. He forced a smile and walked over to our son. "Peter, my boy, just the person I wanted to see. I need you to sign something for me." Scott pulled a document from his pocket and handed it to Peter. "It's just a formality. You're giving up any claim to Uncle John's estate. Since there's no will, it all comes to me anyway." Peter looked confused, glancing at me for guidance. After I gave him a small nod, he signed the paper without hesitation. Scott's grin was triumphant as he grabbed the document back. Then, as if a switch had flipped, he turned to me, his voice cold and flat. "I want a divorce," he said. "I never loved you, Anna. I just put up with you for your parents' money. But now I'm rich. I don't need you anymore." His words hit me like a punch, even though deep down I had suspected this. Hearing it laid out so bluntly was still devastating. "I'm moving to Uncle John's house," Scott continued, already packing a suitcase. "Don't try to contact me. It's over." And just like that, he was gone. 33rd years of marriage packed into a suitcase and out the door. I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It felt unreal, like a bad dream. I couldn't hold it together any longer.
Mom?
Peter's voice was soft, full of concern. Mom, are you okay? I turned to look at my son, my steady rock, and the dam broke. Tears poured down my face as Peter wrapped his arms around me. It's okay, Mom, he whispered, holding me tight. We'll get through this. You're strong, and you'll be okay. As I clung to him, sobbing into his shoulder, I couldn't help but be amazed at the man he had become, kind and compassionate, everything his father wasn't. Then I realized something. You're the best thing he ever did, I whispered to Peter. The only good thing to come out of this marriage. Peter hugged me even tighter, and in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, I wasn't alone. I had my son, and together, we'd face whatever came next. The weeks after Scott left were a blur of pain and disbelief. I tried to stay strong, to focus on moving forward, but it wasn't easy. Scott seemed determined to flaunt his new life right in my face. It started with his Facebook posts, pictures of Uncle John's mansion, which was now Scott's home, filled his timeline. I tried to ignore it and focus on healing. Then, the photos changed. A young woman started appearing in them. She was blonde, beautiful, and barely older than Peter. In one photo, Scott had his arm around her, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption made me feel sick. Meet my fiancée, Joyce. Upgrade complete. The calls started almost immediately. Friends, acquaintances, even some of Peter's old teachers reached out. Anna, dear, is everything okay? We saw Scott's posts. What's going on? I couldn't take it anymore, the humiliation, the constant reminders of Scott's betrayal. It was all too much. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Scott and asked to meet. After speaking with a lawyer, the day of the meeting arrived. I waited at our old favorite cafe, divorce papers in hand. Scott strolled in with Joyce on his arm. She couldn't have been more than 27, her face covered in makeup, giggling at something Scott whispered in her ear. Well, Scott smirked as he pulled out a chair for Joyce. If it isn't the old ball and chain. Joyce, honey, meet Anna, the starter wife. Joyce gave me a pitying look that made my blood boil, but I kept my cool. I have the divorce papers here, I said, sliding them across the table. I'm not asking for much, just the house. You can keep everything else. To my surprise, Scott picked up the pen without a word. Fine, have your little house. I've got bigger and better things now, Scott said as he scribbled his signature on the papers. Then he turned to Joyce, his voice dripping with fake sweetness. Now I can finally be with someone I truly love, someone worthy of me. I gathered the papers, my hands shaking a little, and walked out of the cafe. Behind me, I could hear Scott's mocking laughter, but I didn't look back. I had what I came for. The next day, I filed for divorce. As I handed the papers to the court clerk, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Life has a funny way of bringing justice when you least expect it. For me, it came in the form of a newspaper headline. Local business tycoon's empire crumbles, nephew left with massive debt. It turned out Uncle John had taken out a huge loan just before he passed, hoping to expand his business. He had mentioned something about a new project during our hospital visit, but Peter and I hadn't understood the impact at the time. Now it all made sense. I watched from afar as Scott's new life fell apart. He sold the factory, the mansion, the cars, everything, and he still owed nearly $1 million. The icing on the cake? His young fiancée, Joyce, packed her bags and left as soon as she realized Scott wasn't the rich man she thought he was. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a bit of satisfaction. Karma had finally caught up with Scott. Then one rainy evening, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Scott standing there, looking nothing like the smug, wealthy man who had walked out on me months ago. He was a mess, his eyes red and desperate. Anna, he said, his voice cracking. I've been such a fool. I see that now. Please, can we talk? Against my better judgment, I let him in. For the next hour, I listened as Scott poured out his heart. He told me how he had lost everything and realized what really mattered in life. I was wrong, Anna, he said, his eyes begging. So wrong. But now I see you were the only one who ever truly cared for me, the only one I've ever really loved. Then, to my shock, Scott got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Anna, please give me another chance. Marry me again. Together, we can get through anything. For a moment, I was speechless. Then I did something that surprised even me. I laughed. It started as a small chuckle and grew into full-blown laughter, with tears running down my face. Scott's expression dropped. "What's so funny?" he asked, confused. When I finally caught my breath, I looked Scott straight in the eye. "Oh, Scott, did you really think it would be that easy? That you could treat me like trash, throw me away, and then come crawling back when your life fell apart?" His face darkened, and he stood up, angry. "Now listen here," he snarled. "This is my house too. I have rights." I calmly walked to the drawer where I kept the divorce papers, pulled them out, and showed him his own signature. "No, Scott, you don't. You signed away any claim to this house. It's mine. Now get out, or I'll call the cops." For a moment, I thought he might argue, but something in my face must have told him I was serious. Without another word, he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, I called Peter and told him everything. My wonderful son was, as always, supportive. "You did the right thing, Mom," he said. "I'm proud of you." Those words meant more to me than he could ever know. In the weeks that followed, I made some big decisions. The house, with all its memories both good and bad, felt too big for just me. So I sold it and used the money to buy a cozy apartment in a lively neighborhood I had always loved. At 62, I'm finding that life is just beginning. I've started traveling, visiting all the places Scott promised we'd go but never did. I've taken up painting, joined a book club, and even tried salsa dancing. Every now and then, I see Scott around town. He looks older now, worn down by his mistakes and bad choices. Life didn't turn out the way I expected, but you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. For the first time in a long time, I'm truly, completely happy being me.
The WhatsApp notification lit up my phone like an accusation. There she was, my sister Simone, sprawled across first-class seats in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Champagne flute raised high. "Caribbean, here we come. Blessed and unfamily vacation. My name is Riley, and I haven't been invited on a family vacation in 3 years, not since the accident." "Mom," Milo's voice carried from his bedroom. "Can you help me with my shirt?" I pocketed my phone and wheeled into his room, where my 10-year-old son struggled with his school uniform. His wheelchair was perfectly positioned by the bed, just as we practiced. "Got it, buddy." I helped him navigate the buttons. "Remember, occupational therapy at 4 today. Can we get ice cream after?" I kissed his forehead. "If you promise to do your stretches without complaining." My phone buzzed again. And again, the family group chat exploded with responses. "Living your best life, sis." "Mum, first class is the only class." "Jeremy, wait till you see the villa." "Dad." I opened my laptop and clicked on a folder labeled Chrono Evidence. Inside were hundreds of files, meticulously organized by date. Videos, voice messages, medical bills, police reports, 2 years of careful documentation. "Mom," Milo called again. "You're doing that thing where you get quiet." I closed the laptop. "Just thinking about work, honey. Let's get you to school." The morning routine was clockwork. Transfer to wheelchair, bathroom, breakfast, teeth, shoes. We'd mastered it like a dance, even if some days the music felt off-key. As I loaded Milo's wheelchair into our modified van, Mrs. Peterson from next door waved. "Riley, did you see the news about that drunk driver getting 20 years? Justice served, right?" My hands tightened on the wheelchair straps. Sometimes justice takes longer than we'd like. At Milo's school, I watched him wheel himself toward his friends. He was laughing, telling some joke that had them all giggling. My brave boy, who never complained about the life that was stolen from him. My phone rang. Simone's face filled the screen. Riley. Her voice cracked. I need you. I really messed up. What's wrong? I can't tell Mom and Dad. They'll kill me. I need money. 10,000. Please. You're my only hope. I sat in the van, letting her sob. The same sister who stumbled behind the wheel that night, who let our parents cover it up, who never once visited Milo in the hospital. 10,000? I kept my voice neutral. That's a lot of money, Simone. I know. But you got that inheritance from Aunt Martha, right? Please, Riley. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. Through the windshield, I watched Milo navigate the school's wheelchair ramp. The ramp our parents refused to help pay for. What kind of trouble? I can't say over the phone. Can we meet, please? I'm desperate. I opened the chrono evidence folder on my phone, adding a voice memo. Simone call. Money request. April 15th. Where are you now? I asked. Aren't you boarding your flight? I had to stay behind. Jeremy doesn't know. Nobody knows. Riley, these people, they're dangerous. I need the money by tomorrow. My finger hovered over a document titled Casino Debts, SF. I'd been building this case piece by piece, waiting for the right moment, waiting for her to crack. Okay, I said softly. Let's meet. Tell me where. She named a coffee shop downtown, her voice thick with relief. Thank you, Riley. I knew I could count on you. You've always been the good one. I ended the call and opened my messages to Emerson. It's happening. She finally slipped. The response was immediate. The PI found something big. Come to the office ASAP. I started the van, glancing one last time at Milo through the school windows. He was showing his friends some new trick with his wheelchair, his smile bright enough to light up the room. My sister's Caribbean selfie still glowed on my phone. Such a perfect life. Such a perfect lie. I thought of the dashcam footage the PI mentioned last week, supposedly recovered from that night. The night Simone got behind the wheel, giggling, while Jeremy egged her on. The night they left, my son paralyzed and drove away. I typed one last message to my sister. Of course I'll help. That's what family is for. Then I drove to meet Emerson, ready to start dismantling the house of cards my family built on my son's broken bones. Simone was already at the coffee shop when I arrived, her designer sunglasses hiding what I assumed were tears. She'd chosen a corner table, far from windows. Smart move for someone hiding from debt collectors. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing mascara-stained cheeks. I haven't slept in 3 days. Tell me what's going on. I need you to promise you won't judge me. Her hands shook as she clutched her untouched latte. And you can't tell anyone, especially not Mom and Dad. Like how they didn't tell anyone about the accident? Her head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just tell me about the money. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. I've been gambling. Online mostly. Started small, you know? But then I found this exclusive site, high-stakes stuff. I was winning at first, Riley. God, I was winning so much. Until you weren't. I borrowed money. From people you don't want to borrow from. She grabbed my hand. They're threatening to tell Jeremy, to tell everyone. They'll hurt me, Riley. Please. I extracted my hand from hers. How much do you really owe? 10,000 would cover the immediate. Total, Simone. How much? She stared into her coffee. 150,000. I let that number hang between us. The same amount our parents offered me to sign that gag order after the accident. The money I'd refused. Does Jeremy know anything? No, God no. He thinks I'm at the resort with Mom and Dad. I told him I'd catch up tomorrow, that I had a charity event today. My phone buzzed. A text from Emerson. You need to see this footage. Now. I need time to think about this, I told Simone. The inheritance money isn't just sitting in my account. I don't have time. Her voice cracked. They want the first payment by midnight. Please, Riley. I've never needed anyone like I need you right now. I stood up. That's not true, Simone. You needed me the night you got behind the wheel drunk. You needed me when Milo was in surgery. You needed me every time you chose to look away. Her face went pale. Why are you bringing that up now? Because debts always come due, one way or another. I left her there, crying into her expensive latte, and drove straight to Emerson's office. She was waiting with Adam, my lawyer, both looking grim. Watch this, Emerson said, turning her monitor toward me. The grainy dashcam footage showed a familiar street. Simone stumbling out of the restaurant, Jeremy's arm around her waist. Both laughing. I can totally drive. Simone's voice, slurred but clear. Show them how it's done, babe. Jeremy, pushing the keys into her hand. I gripped the desk as the footage continued. The swerving, the impact. Then Jeremy's voice. Oh shit! Oh shit! Drive! Just drive! Adam paused the video. This was recovered from a rideshare driver's dash cam. He was parked across the street that night, never came forward because your father's firm had connections to his employer. But now he's retired, Emerson added, and feeling guilty. My phone lit up with texts from Simone. Please call me back. I'm begging you. They're going to hurt me. What's our next move? I asked Adam. We file tomorrow. The gambling debts actually help us. Shows a pattern of reckless behavior. The timing's perfect. I thought of Milo, who would be finishing school soon, who still asked sometimes why Aunt Simone never visited anymore. Do it, I said. File everything. Emerson touched my arm. Are you sure? Once this starts, my family spent 3 years pretending nothing happened. They holiday in the Caribbean while I take my son to physical therapy. They deserve everything that's coming. My phone rang. Mom's face appearing on screen. I answered on speaker. Riley, your sister is hysterical. What did you say to her? Nothing she didn't need to hear. She says you threatened her. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I laughed. Tell me, Mom, how's the resort? Is the view as nice as it looks in Simone's selfies? Don't be bitter, Riley. You know we couldn't bring Milo. The resort isn't equipped. I met Emerson's eyes as she handed me the final lawsuit documents. You're right, Mom. It's time everyone was properly equipped to handle the truth. I hung up and signed my name on the dotted line, remembering Simone's words from the coffee shop. I've never needed anyone like I need you right now. She was wrong about that too. She needed me to finally make her pay. I watched the dashcam footage for the 6th time in Adam's office, each viewing making my hands shake harder. The way Simone laughed before the impact, the sound of screeching tires, Jeremy's voice urging her to flee. The statute of limitations hasn't run out, Adam said, closing his laptop. And with this evidence, plus the gambling debts showing an ongoing pattern of reckless behavior. My phone buzzed. Simone again. They're sending people to my house. Please, I'm scared. She's spiraling, Emerson said, reading over my shoulder. How much do you want to bet those gambling debts are way more than she's admitted? Call Uncle Spencer, I told her. He's always been the family gossip. Tell him you're a concerned friend who overheard something at the country club about Simone's gambling. Emerson grinned, already dialing. She put it on speaker. Spencer speaking. Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you. Emerson's voice dripped with concern. I'm a member at Rolling Hills, and I overheard something disturbing about your niece Simone. About some dangerous people she's involved with. What kind of people? His interest was immediate. Oh, I shouldn't say more. I know how respected your family is. I'd hate for anything to damage that reputation. 20 minutes after hanging up, my father called. "What's this about your sister gambling?" His voice was tight with anger. "Why don't you ask her?" I kept my tone neutral. "Oh wait, she's supposed to be with you in the Caribbean." "Don't get smart with me, Riley. If you know something, like how you knew something the night of Milo's accident, that kind of something." Silence crackled over the line. "We did what was best for everyone," he finally said. "The settlement, the hush money you mean, the money I refused. You're still angry, I understand that, but dragging up the past." "The past?" I laughed. "Dad, I live the past every day, every time I lift Milo into his wheelchair, every time he asks why his legs won't work, every time Simone posts another perfect Instagram photo, pretending she's not a drunk driver who destroyed her nephew's life." "That's enough," he barked. "What do you want?" "I want justice." "Justice?" he scoffed. "You want revenge." Maybe they're the same thing. Adam gestured at his watch. The court filing deadline was approaching. "Dad," I said softly, "remember when I was 7 and you taught me to swim? You said the trick was to not fight the water, to work with it until it carried you where you needed to go. What's your point? I'm not fighting anymore. I'm letting the truth carry us all where we need to go." I hung up as Emerson's computer pinged. An email from Palm's insurance company. Preliminary settlement offer, personal injury claim. 7 figures, Adam whispered, scanning the document. "They're scared." My phone exploded with texts from Simone. "They're outside my house. Why aren't you answering? I'll tell everyone you abandoned me. You're just jealous of my life." I forwarded the texts to Adam, who added them to our evidence file. Each desperate message was another nail in her coffin. "Mom's calling," I told them, showing the screen. "Answer it," Adam advised. "Record everything." "Riley?" Mom's voice was shrill. "Your sister says you're threatening her, that you're trying to destroy the family." "No, Mom. The family destroyed itself the night they left my son bleeding on the pavement. We paid for his medical bills. We tried to help." "You tried to buy my silence. There's a difference. What do you want from us?" She was crying now. "Money? Is that it? Your father will write a check." I want Simone to say it, to admit what she did, to look Milo in the eye and tell him why she drove away. That would kill her career, her marriage, everything she's built. Everything she built on my son's broken bones. Silence. "The lawsuit files in 30 minutes, I said. "Maybe call your perfect daughter and tell her to prepare for some real consequences for once." I ended the call and looked at Adam. "Do it." He pressed send on the court filing. Somewhere across town, my sister's phone would be lighting up with legal notifications. My parents would be getting frantic calls from their lawyers. Jeremy would be wondering why his wife never made it to the Caribbean. "What now?" Emerson asked. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Simone. "You were always jealous. Always the victim. I should have driven back and finished the job." I showed the message to Adam, who added it to our file. "Now?" I smiled. "Now we watch it all burn." "I might be able to help you," I told Simone over the phone, "but I need to know exactly what kind of trouble you're in." She'd been calling non-stop since the lawsuit notification, alternating between threats and desperate pleas. I put her on speaker while Emerson recorded. "You do that?" Hope crept into her voice. After everything? Family is family, right? That's what Mom always says." "God, Riley, thank you. I knew you'd understand. Tell me about the gambling, all of it." She hesitated. It's complicated." "Try me." "There's this site, playersparadise.com, private tables, high stakes. I was winning at first, I swear. But then this guy, he said he could get me better odds if I played through his private server. And you believed him? He seemed legitimate. He had references, other players. She paused. I lost. Big. Then he offered to let me play on credit. How much, Simone? 300,000. I let the number hang there. Twice what she'd admitted at the coffee shop. These people, she continued, they know where I live. They know about Jeremy, about Mom and Dad. One of them said they'd break my legs if I didn't pay. Like Milo's legs? What? Why would you? Her voice hardened. Is that what this is about? You're still obsessed with the accident? The hit and run, you mean? Stop it. I need help, and you're playing games. No games, just truth. Finally, my other phone lit up. Jeremy calling. I switched lines. What the hell is going on? He demanded. I'm getting calls about a lawsuit? Ask your wife about the gambling debts. Ask her where she really is right now. What gambling? He stopped. Simone's not at the resort? Check your joint accounts, Jeremy. Check them now. I heard typing, then a sharp intake of breath. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. While you're at it, ask her about the dashcam footage from the night of the accident, the one where you told her to drive away from my son. The line went dead. Emerson's computer pinged. An email from a local news station requesting comment on the lawsuit. It was starting. My phone buzzed again. Simone. Jeremy's threatening divorce. You ruined everything. I texted back. No, you did that yourself. One bad choice at a time. Then came the voicemail. Simone, sobbing. I'm going to kill myself. I'm in the bathroom with pills. This is your fault. All your fault. I forwarded it to Emerson, who made a call. 5 minutes later, she confirmed. Police did a welfare check. She's at Starbucks, very much alive, making a scene. Mom was next. Your sister is having a breakdown in public. Are you happy now? Was I happy when Milo had his breakdown? When he realized he'd never walk again? That's different. You're right. That was real. The calls kept coming. Uncle Spencer, do you know what this will do to the family name? Aunt Patricia, your poor sister, how could you? I blocked them all, one by one, like cutting dead branches from a dying tree. Adam called with updates. The lawsuit was gaining traction. Local news had picked up the story. Social media was buzzing. Then came Simone's Instagram post, a perfectly staged photo of pills scattered across a marble counter. Caption, Goodbye, cruel world. I'm sorry I wasn't perfect enough for some people. Comments flooded in. Stay strong. We love you. Your sister is so toxic. I screenshot everything for the file. Emerson texted, check, Twitter. Simone Fernandez was trending. Her followers were split, half supporting her victim narrative, half digging up old posts about her luxury lifestyle. Someone had found a video from 3 months ago. Simone, drunk at a charity gala, joking about, that time I totally crashed my car but Daddy fixed it. The dominoes were falling. My phone lit up with an unknown number. Is this Riley? A man's voice, professional. I'm from TMZ. We'd like to talk about your sister's hit-and-run incident. No comment, I said, then paused. But you might want to look into playersparadise.com. Ask about their high roller tables. More calls, more messages, more chaos. Finally, a text from Jeremy. I checked the accounts. She emptied everything, even Milo's trust fund. I smiled. We'd moved that money months ago, waiting for exactly this. Emerson brought me coffee as we watched Simone's carefully curated world implode in real time. You okay? She asked. I showed her my phone, a photo Milo had just sent from his school's science fair. He was beaming, proudly displaying his first-place ribbon. I'm perfect, I said. For the first time in years, everything's exactly how it should be. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Simone. "Please, I'll do anything." I replied, "I know, that's the problem." The family estate looked exactly as I remembered. Pristine lawns, marble columns, suffocating perfection. Mom's text had been clear. Family intervention, 7 p.m. Be there. I wheeled Milo up the newly installed ramp. Funny how they'd managed that just hours after the lawsuit made headlines. "You sure about this, buddy?" I asked him. He squeezed my hand. "I'm not scared of them anymore, Mom." Inside, they were all arranged in the formal living room, like actors in a bad play. Mum perched on her favorite armchair, Dad standing behind her. Jeremy slouched in a corner, avoiding everyone's eyes, and Simone, mascara-stained and trembling, sat in the center of the sofa. "Riley," Mom stood, "and Milo, we didn't expect my son at a family meeting?" Simone wouldn't look at Milo. She never did. "Please sit," Dad gestured. "We need to discuss this situation like adults." I positioned Milo's wheelchair next to me on the Persian rug that probably cost more than his last surgery. "Simone," Mom began, "we're here because we love you. Your gambling addiction—" "Oh, now it's an addiction," I interrupted. "Not just her being spirited or living life to the fullest, like when she drove drunk." "That's not what this is about," Mom snapped. "It's exactly what this is about." I pulled out a manila envelope. "Everything's connected." Simone finally spoke, voice cracking. "What's in there?" "The truth. Every receipt, every text, every security camera footage from that night. The dashcam video of you laughing while you drove away from my son." "You're lying," she whispered. I slid out a photo. Her car, front end damaged, hidden in Uncle Spencer's garage the day after the accident. "Spencer promised he destroyed those," Dad said quietly. "Spencer got sloppy after his third divorce. Amazing what his ex-wife kept in her files." Jeremy pushed off from the wall. "I should go—" "Sit down," I ordered. "You're in these photos too. Remember holding Simone's hair back while she vomited in the garage? Right after you told her to flee the scene?" He sank back down. "What do you want?" Mom's voice shook. "Money? We can pay—" "I want her to look at him." I pointed at Milo. "I want her to finally look at what she did." Simone's eyes darted to Milo, then away. "Look at him." "I can't," she screamed. "Why not?" "Because I was supposed to be perfect." She hurled her wineglass against the wall. "The perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect social media influencer. And I ruined it. Is that what you want to hear?" Milo spoke up, his voice clear and strong. "I forgive you, Aunt Simone." The room froze. "What?" she whispered. "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because hating you is exhausting." Simone crumpled, sliding to the floor. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix his legs," I said, pulling out more documents. "But this might help others." Dad recognized the paperwork first. "You're not just suing us. You're going after the country club that served her alcohol, the valet who gave her keys back, our lawyer who covered it up. Everyone who helped hide the truth. Every single one." Mom lunged forward, hand raised to slap me. I caught her wrist. "Try it," I said softly. "Give me one more thing to add to the lawsuit." Jeremy's phone buzzed. He checked it, face paling. TMZ just ran the story, with the dashcam footage. Simone screamed, scrambling for her phone. Her Instagram followers were already dropping by the thousands. "Your choice," I told them all. "We can settle this quietly, with a full confession, compensation for Milo's ongoing care, and a substantial donation to drunk driving prevention programs. Or what?" Dad demanded. "Or I let the media dig deeper. They're very interested in the family that covered up a hit and run. I hear Netflix is already calling about rights to the story." Mom collapsed into her chair. You're destroying us. No, Milo said. You destroyed yourselves. Mum's just turning on the lights. I handed each of them a document. Sign the settlement by midnight or tomorrow I give my first television interview. You wouldn't, Simone breathed. I stood, gripping Milo's wheelchair handles. 3 years ago, I begged you to take responsibility. You chose image over truth. Now, I choose justice over family. We turned to leave. Behind us, I heard papers rustling, Mom crying, Simone's broken whispers. At the door, Milo looked back. By the way, Aunt Simone, those casino guys you're scared of, Mom already reported them to the FBI. You're welcome. We left them there, surrounded by their shattered perfection, finally facing the truth they'd tried so hard to bury. My phone buzzed. Adam texting. TMZ story hitting 1M views. You ready for tomorrow? I looked at Milo, who smiled and nodded. Ready, I typed back. Time to tell our story. The morning after the intervention, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Justice for Milo was trending. Simone's Instagram followers had dropped by 500,000 overnight. 3 brands had already dropped her sponsorship deals. Mom, Milo called from the living room. We're on TV. The local news was running the dashcam footage on a loop. Simone stumbling to the car. Jeremy laughing. The impact. The escape. My phone rang. Jeremy. Make it stop, he pleaded. My company's board is meeting this afternoon. They're talking about moral character clauses in my contract. Karma's interesting, isn't it? I'll testify, he said quickly. Against Simone. About everything. The drinking, the cover-up, your father's bribes to the police. Send it in writing to Adam. Every detail. He hung up as another call came in. Simone's agent. Listen, she started. This could work for everyone. Simone does a tearful interview, admits her mistakes, starts a foundation for drunk driving victims. People love redemption stories. My son's paralysis isn't your client's redemption arc. Think about it. Oprah would... I hung up. Emerson arrived with coffee and news. Your parents' country club suspended their membership. Your dad's law firm partners are calling an emergency meeting. And Simone's being dropped from the hospital charity board. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Your father's having chest pains. Are you happy now? I showed Emerson, who snorted. Classic manipulation. Want to bet he's perfectly fine? Mom? Milo wheeled over. Someone's at the door. Through the window, I saw Simone standing on our porch. No makeup, wearing sweatpants. I'd never seen her like this. Stay here, I told Milo, and opened the door. They're going to arrest me, she blurted out. The police reopened the case. Jeremy's talking to them. Good. Please, she grabbed my arm. I'll lose everything. Like Milo lost his ability to walk? I'll do anything. I'll confess. I'll pay whatever you want. You had 3 years to do that. She sank to her knees. They're saying I could get 5 years. Actual prison. Me. The average sentence for hit and run with serious injury is 8 to 15 years, I said. Dad's legal connections got you a deal last time. Not anymore. Riley, please, we're sisters. We stopped being sisters the moment you drove away. My phone buzzed. Adam calling. I left her crying on the porch. The DA wants to meet, he said. They're considering criminal charges against your father too. Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering. Good. Riley, he hesitated. Your mother's doing an interview right now. Local news. It's not good. I switched on the TV. There was Mom, perfectly coiffed, tears strategically falling. My daughters were always so close, she was saying. But Riley, after the accident, she changed, became bitter, obsessed with revenge. We tried to help, offered money, but she wanted to destroy our family. Milo wheeled closer. Grandma's lying again. Yes, she is. Why do they keep lying? Because the truth hurts more than they can handle. My phone exploded with notifications. Mum's interview was backfiring spectacularly. Social media was shredding her, calling out her victim blaming and manipulation. Another text from Jeremy. Simone overdosed. She's at Memorial Hospital. Real or fake this time? Emerson asked, reading over my shoulder. I called the hospital. Hi, my sister Simone was supposedly brought in for an overdose? Oh, Mrs. Fernandez. She's in the cafeteria getting coffee. Would you like me to transfer you? I hung up. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Dad, looking aged and desperate. The firm voted, he said quietly. They're asking me to retire. 30 years of partnership. Actions have consequences. I was protecting our family. No. I showed him my phone, a photo of Milo in his hospital bed after the accident. You were protecting your reputation. There's a difference. He stared at the photo, finally seeing what he'd tried so hard to ignore. What do you want? He asked, defeated. I want you all to face what you did. Really face it. No more cover-ups, no more lies, no more perfect family facade. And then? Then justice takes its course, for all of you. He nodded slowly, turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for protecting Simone, but for failing you. For failing Milo. I know, I said, but sorry isn't enough anymore. I closed the door and held Milo close, watching through the window as my father walked away, shoulders bent under the weight of consequences too long delayed. My phone buzzed one last time. The DA's office. Press conference tomorrow. Be ready. We were ready. We'd been ready for 3 years. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters. Milo gripped my hand as we made our way through the crowd, his wheelchair expertly handled by Emerson. Mrs. Fernandez, any comment on your sister's arrest? Is it true your father's firm covered up the accident? Adam met us at the entrance. Simone's inside. She took the plea deal. How long? I asked. 3 years, with possibility of parole after 18 months, plus restitution. That's it? She agreed to testify against your father. The DA's more interested in the cover-up conspiracy than the original crime. Inside, the courtroom was standing room only. Simone sat at the defendant's table, wearing a beige dress that probably cost more than my car. No makeup, no jewelry. Her lawyer had clearly coached her on appearing humble. Mom and Dad sat in the front row, both looking shell-shocked. Jeremy was nowhere to be seen. All rise! The judge entered, and the proceedings began. I squeezed Milo's shoulder as Simone approached the podium. Would you please state your name for the record? Simone Marie Fernandez. And you understand the terms of your plea agreement? Yes, Your Honor. Please tell the court, in your own words, what happened on the night of April 12th, 3 years ago. Simone gripped the podium. I was drinking at La Maison restaurant, celebrating a new sponsorship deal. I had too much champagne. Jeremy and I were arguing about who should drive. And then? I got behind the wheel. Jeremy was encouraging me, saying I was fine. We were both so stupid. She wiped her eyes. I didn't see the kid on his bike until it was too late. The kid has a name, I said loudly. The judge looked at me. Ma'am, please. His name is Milo, Simone continued, voice shaking. My nephew. I hit him, and I drove away. Jeremy told me to keep driving, said Dad would fix everything. And he did. They all did. They helped me hide what I'd done. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. And the subsequent cover-up? Dad paid off the investigating officer. Mom convinced Riley to keep quiet. Offered her money. Uncle Spencer hid my car. Everyone knew, but no one said anything. Why come forward now? Simone looked at me for the first time. because my sister was braver than all of us. She refused to let us bury the truth. The judge reviewed the plea agreement. Ms. Fernandez, this court sentences you to 3 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 18 months. You will pay restitution of $2 million to the victim's family. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Additionally, you will provide full testimony against all parties involved in the cover-up conspiracy. Failure to cooperate will void your plea agreement. 2 officers approached with handcuffs. Wait! Simone turned to us. Milo, I'm so sorry. Riley, Take her into custody, the judge ordered. As they led Simone away, Mom stood up screaming. This isn't justice. This is revenge. Mrs. Marshall, the judge warned, control yourself or be held in contempt. Dad pulled her back down, his face ashen. His own arraignment was scheduled for next week. Outside, the media frenzy had doubled. Cameras flashed as Simone was led to a waiting police car. Riley! A reporter thrust a microphone at me. How do you feel about the sentence? I looked at Milo, who nodded. My son will never walk again. 3 years seems light. But this was never about punishment. It was about truth. No more lies, no more cover-ups. And your parents? Will you support their prosecution? Actions have consequences, even for the rich and powerful. Emerson helped us navigate through the crowd to our van. As we pulled away, I saw Mom crying on the courthouse steps, Dad trying to shield her from cameras. Mom? Milo asked quietly. Are you okay? I touched his cheek. I'm perfect, buddy. How about ice cream? Can we get some for Aunt Simone? For when she's allowed visitors? My throat tightened. Yeah, we can do that. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Turning myself in tomorrow. Milo deserves the whole truth. I'm sorry it took so long. Then from Dad. The firm's internal investigation found evidence of other cover-ups. I'm cooperating fully. You were right. It's time for truth. Emerson showed me her phone. Simone's perky social media empire had been replaced with a single post. 3 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. Then I made it worse by hiding it. To my nephew Milo, I'm finally facing what I did. I hope someday you can forgive me. To my sister Riley, thank you for being strong enough to break our family's cycle of lies. At the ice cream shop, Milo got chocolate with extra sprinkles. As he ate, a young mother approached our table. Are you Riley? I saw you on the news. My brother was hit by a drunk driver last year. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for showing us that the truth matters. I watched her walk away, then looked at my son, my brave, beautiful boy who had taught me that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just quietly insists on being heard. The moving truck pulled away from our new house, leaving Milo and me standing in the driveway. Single story, wheelchair accessible, with a garden out back. Everything we needed, nothing we didn't. Ready to see your room? I asked. Race you there. He wheeled ahead, expertly navigating the wide hallways we'd specifically designed. My phone buzzed. Emerson sending a news update. Dad's sentencing was complete. 18 months for conspiracy and obstruction. Mom got probation and community service. The family's reputation was in tatters, but at least the truth was finally out. Mom, Milo called. There's a letter. On his new desk sat a cream-colored envelope. Prison stationery. Want me to read it? I asked. He nodded. Dear Milo, I began. The prison library has a program where we read to kids at the children's hospital. Kids like you were, after the accident. Every time I read to them, I think about what I took from you. What my cowardice cost our family. The doorbell rang. Emerson stood there with a box of pizza and a folder. The foundation paperwork is ready, she said, following us to the kitchen. Just need your signature to make it official. I signed where she pointed. The Milo Marshall Foundation for Accident Victims was now real. Did you tell him about the first recipient? she asked. Milo looked up from his pizza. Tell me what? I pulled out my phone, showing him the application. Remember Tommy from your physical therapy group? His family's struggling with medical bills. We're going to help them. His eyes lit up. Really? Can I tell him? It's your foundation, buddy. You can do whatever you want. My phone buzzed again. A text from Jeremy. The divorce is final. Signed over my half of everything to Milo's foundation. It's not enough, but it's a start. Another message popped up. Mom, the country club board meeting went as expected. They're renaming the annual charity gala. It's now the Milo Marshall Benefit for Accident Survivors. I showed Emerson, who snorted. Amazing how generous people get when their reputations are at stake. As long as the money helps someone, I don't care why they give it. Milo wheeled to the window, overlooking his garden. Can we plant those special flowers? The ones that bloom at night? Moonflowers? Sure. Aunt Simone used to have those, he said quietly. Remember? In her fancy garden? I knelt beside his wheelchair. Do you want to visit her? He nodded. She writes me every week. Her letters aren't fake anymore. They're real, like this house, I said. No more pretending. No more perfect facades. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Adam, carrying files. Final paperwork from the civil suit, he said. The insurance company paid out everything. Your parents' firm is settling. Even the restaurant where Simone was drinking that night. Good, I said. It all goes to the foundation. Mom? Milo called from his room. Can you help me hang this? He held up a framed photo. Our old family portrait from before the accident. Everyone smiling. Perfect. Fake. Are you sure that's the one you want? He shook his head and pulled out another photo. Him and me at his science fair. Both grinning real grins, his wheelchair visible and unashamed. This is better, he said. This is true. My phone lit up with a final text from Simone. My cellmate's daughter is paralyzed. I'm teaching her mom about resources, support groups, everything I should have learned from Milo. Thank you for making me face this. For making me better. I deleted the message without responding. Some bridges take longer to rebuild. Hey, Mom, Milo called. Can we order one of those special gaming chairs? The kind that lets me play basketball in virtual reality? Already did. Should be here next week. He beamed. Our new house is perfect. Not perfect, I corrected. Real. There's a difference. Emerson helped us unpack boxes while Adam sorted paperwork. Outside, the moving truck had left tracks in our new driveway, marks that would fade with time, like all scars do. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. Saw your story online. My brother's drunk driving case got buried by rich lawyers. Can you help? I showed it to Adam, who nodded. The Foundation's legal aid program starts next month. I typed back. Yes. Truth matters. Justice matters. Let's talk. Milo wheeled over with his science homework. Mum, will you help me with my project? It's about action and reaction. How everything we do has consequences. I hugged him close, breathing in the scent of his hair. Yeah, buddy. I know exactly what you mean. We sat together in our real house, with our real lives, finally free from the weight of other people's lies. Not perfect, not pristine, just true. And that was everything.
The text message glowed on my phone screen like a warning flare. Watch your back tomorrow. They don't play fair. I stared at it, my stomach twisting into knots, as the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses drifted up from our dining room below. The annual pre-scholarship dinner was in full swing, and I, Yara, was hiding in my bedroom instead of playing my part in our picture-perfect family gathering. Yara, get down here this instant! My mother's voice carried that familiar edge of barely contained irritation. I smoothed my dress and took one last look in the mirror. Deep breath, game face on. The The scholarship interview tomorrow was my ticket out, and I couldn't let anyone see how desperately I wanted it. The dining room fell silent as I descended the stairs. Aunt Christine's perfectly manicured hand paused mid-gesture, her wine glass catching the light. My cousin Morgan sat beside her, wearing that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. "There's our other little scholar." Aunt Christine's voice dripped honey. "We were just discussing tomorrow's interviews. Morgan's been preparing for months, haven't you, sweetheart?" Morgan nodded, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "I have memorized every past recipient's profile. Did you know they've never chosen anyone who wasn't involved in at least 3 leadership positions?" The jab wasn't subtle. I'd spent my high school years studying while Morgan collected club presidencies like trophy badges. "Yara's taken a different approach," my mother chimed in, her tone making it clear which approach she preferred. "Though I do worry about her tendency to isolate herself. The committee looks for well-rounded candidates." I speared a piece of asparagus with more force than necessary. "I maintain a 4.0 GPA while working part-time at the library. I'd say that's pretty well-rounded." "Of course, dear," Aunt Christine smiled. "But there's more to life than books. Morgan, tell everyone about your volunteer work at the Children's Hospital." As Morgan launched into her perfectly rehearsed speech, I noticed my phone buzzing. A text from my cousin Destiny. "Hang in there. Remember what we talked about." Destiny was the only one who'd escaped this gilded cage. She'd moved across the country 2 years ago, cutting ties with most of the family. Now I understood why. "Speaking of the scholarship," Aunt Christine's voice cut through my thoughts. "I ran into Dean Oliver at the country club last week. Such a concerned man. We had quite an illuminating conversation about the candidates." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The way she emphasized illuminating made my skin crawl. "Oh?" I kept my voice steady. "What kind of conversation?" "Just discussing the importance of emotional stability in academic pressure cookers like Crestwood." She shared a look with my mother that made my blood run cold. "We wouldn't want anyone cracking under the strain, would we?" Morgan's smile widened slightly. My mother suddenly became very interested in her wine glass. "I handle pressure just fine," I said quietly. "Of course you do, sweetie." Aunt Christine reached across the table to pat my hand. "But after that incident last year," "There was no incident." My voice came out sharper than intended. "I took a mental health day, one day, because I had the flu." "The school counsellor seemed quite concerned," my mother murmured. "And as your mother, I feel obligated to ensure any scholarship committee has a complete picture of—" "Who wants dessert?" Morgan interrupted brightly. "Mom made her famous tiramisu." As everyone shifted focus to the dessert, I excused myself to use the bathroom. In the hallway, I overheard whispered fragments from the kitchen where Aunt Christine and my mother were gathering dessert plates. "Committee needs to understand. For her own good, really. Morgan's worked so hard. Better suited." I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding. The anonymous text message suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't just supporting Morgan. They were actively working to sabotage me. Back in the dining room, Morgan caught my eye and smiled. Not her usual practiced smile, but something darker, more satisfied. She knew. She'd always known. I pulled out my phone under the table and typed a quick response to Destiny. "You were right. They're planning something for tomorrow." Her reply came instantly. "Document everything. Trust no one. And Yara, make them regret underestimating you." I looked around the table at my family's smiling faces, all raising their glasses in yet another toast to Morgan's bright future. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. Game on. Something was wrong. I felt it the moment I walked into the interview room. The committee members' expressions were too rigid, their smiles too practiced, like they'd already made up their minds. "Please, take a seat, Yara." Dr. Martinez gestured to the chair in front of their long table. 4 pairs of eyes watched me carefully, searching for something. "Thank you for having me," I said, smoothing my skirt as I sat. Through the glass wall behind them, I caught a glimpse of Morgan in the waiting area, typing furiously on her phone. "We've reviewed your application thoroughly," Dr. Martinez began, "and we have some concerns we'd like to address." My heart stuttered. "Concerns?" Your academic record is impressive, another committee member, Dr. Walsh, interjected. But we've received some troubling information about your emotional stability. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the arms of my chair, remembering Destiny's words, "Document everything." I wasn't aware there were concerns about my stability, I said carefully. Could you elaborate? Dr. Martinez shuffled some papers. We understand you had a breakdown last year that required intervention from the school counselor. That's not accurate, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I had the flu and took one sick day. The counselor checked in because it was during finals week, but I still maintained my 4.0 GPA. Your mother seems quite worried about your ability to handle stress, Dr. Walsh pressed. She mentioned isolation tendencies, anxiety issues. The pieces clicked into place. Every missed family dinner because I was studying. Every therapy session I'd attended to learn stress management techniques. They'd twisted it all into something sinister. I chose to prioritize my academics, I said. That meant missing some social events. As for therapy, I believe in mental health maintenance. Many successful people do. A new voice cut through the tension. Interesting perspective. I turned to see an older man standing in the doorway. His presence seemed to shift the energy in the room. Dean Oliver, he introduced himself, taking a seat at the end of the table. Please continue. I straightened my spine. I've worked part-time at the library since freshman year, while maintaining top grades. I've published 2 research papers in student journals. I may not lead 5 clubs, but I've earned every achievement through hard work and focus. And the anxiety issues your aunt mentioned? Dr. Walsh pressed. My aunt, I said carefully, has her own perspectives on success. I prefer to let my results speak for themselves. Dean Oliver leaned forward. Tell me about your research papers. For the next 20 minutes, we discussed my work on environmental impact studies and educational inequality. The other committee members grew quieter as Dean Oliver asked increasingly specific questions. Impressive grasp of statistical analysis, he commented. Most high school students wouldn't attempt such complex methodology. Most students have more free time for extracurriculars, I replied. I had to make my limited time count. As the interview wrapped up, I caught Dean Oliver studying me with an unreadable expression. Outside, I heard Morgan's laugh, followed by Aunt Christine's voice. Thank you for your time, I said, standing. I hope you'll judge me on my own merits. In the hallway, Morgan brushed past me into the interview room. Good luck, she smirked. Though I heard they're looking for someone more stable. I waited until she disappeared before letting my hands shake. Pulling out my phone, I found 3 texts from my mother. Hope you're being appropriate. Remember to smile. Christine says Morgan's interview went perfectly. A memory flashed. Me at 14, winning the state science fair. Instead of congratulations, my mother had said, it's not healthy to spend so much time alone with your experiments. Another, 16, getting a perfect SAT score. Aunt Christine's response, but did you hear Morgan made cheer captain? I was so lost in thought, I almost missed it. Aunt Christine's voice floating from around the corner. It's done. Morgan's reply, perfect. They totally bought it. I pressed myself against the wall. Phone recording. The therapy angle was inspired, Mum. Did you see their faces when you mentioned possible depression? Dean Oliver seemed interested in her research. Christine said, but don't worry. No one wants to risk a scholarship on someone who might crack under pressure. Their voices faded as they walked away. I stopped the recording, hands steady now. Destiny was right. Document everything. My phone buzzed. Ms. Reyes, please see me in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. Dean Oliver. I stared at the message, heart pounding. He'd seen something during that interview. The question was, what? Looking back toward the interview room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass. I didn't see the unstable, isolated girl they'd described. I saw someone they'd severely underestimated. And that was their first mistake. I spent the night gathering evidence. Every condescending text, every concerned email my mother and aunt had sent to teachers over the years. My hands shook as I forwarded them to a secure email account Destiny had helped me create. You don't look like you've slept, Destiny said during our morning video call. She was the only one who knew I was meeting Dean Oliver. Hard to sleep when your family's trying to destroy your future, I replied, attempting to tame my hair into something professional. Remember what I told you about the receipts? I nodded, pulling up the folder on my phone. Everything's dated and backed up, including the recording from yesterday. Good girl. Now go show them what quiet rage looks like. Dean Oliver's office was smaller than I expected, with walls lined with books instead of the usual academic awards. He gestured for me to sit, while he finished typing something on his computer. Interesting thing about email records, he said without looking up. They leave quite a trail. My heart stopped. Your aunt has been quite persistent in her communications with the committee. He turned his screen toward me. There were dozens of emails from Christine, dating back months. I had no idea, I said quietly. No? He raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps you can explain why I have similar emails from your mother, your aunt, and 3 different family friends, all coincidentally concerned about your mental state? I pulled out my phone, hands steady. Actually, I can explain exactly why. I played the recording from yesterday. Dean Oliver's expression remained neutral as he listened to Christine and Morgan's conversation outside the interview room. Interesting, he said when it finished, but it doesn't prove systematic sabotage. No, I agreed, opening my email. But these might. I showed him the archived messages. Christine telling my elementary school teacher I was disturbingly antisocial when I preferred reading to recess. My mother emailing my middle school counselor about concerns every time I outperformed Morgan on tests. The steady stream of subtle undermining, all carefully documented. You've been preparing for this, he observed. My cousin Destiny warned me. She left the family 2 years ago after they did the same thing to her. She taught me to keep records. A knock interrupted us. A tall guy about my age stuck his head in. Another scholarship candidate I recognized from yesterday. Sorry, sir, I can come back. No, Damien, please join us. Dean Oliver waved him in. I believe you have something to add to this conversation. Damien sat, glancing at me apologetically. I overheard your aunt and cousin in the parking lot yesterday. They were talking about how they'd taken care of the competition. I recorded it. He played the clip. Christine's voice was unmistakable. The scholarship's as good as yours, Morgan. No committee would choose someone with a history of mental instability. That's 3 separate recordings of attempted sabotage, Dean Oliver said, plus years of documented manipulation. I'm not here to destroy my family, I said quickly. I just want a fair chance. Fair? Damien scoffed. They're trying to ruin your life. No, I corrected him. They're trying to control it. There's a difference. Dean Oliver studied me for a long moment. You know, most people would be plotting revenge. Revenge is reactive, I said. I prefer to be strategic. A small smile crossed his face. The scholarship gala is next week. All candidates are required to attend with their families. I know. Morgan's already planning her acceptance speech. Is she? He picked up an envelope from his desk. Then perhaps you should read this. Inside was an official invitation. My name was listed under honorees. Sir? The committee votes tomorrow, he said. But I think you should keep this information to yourself for now. Sometimes the best response to manipulation is simply to let it play out. While documenting everything, Damien added with a grin. Precisely. Dean Oliver stood. Oh, and Yara? Wear something memorable to the gala. I have a feeling it's going to be quite an evening. Outside his office, Damien caught up with me. Hey, I know we're technically competitors, but what they're doing is wrong. If you need another witness... Thanks, I said. But I think Dean Oliver has something bigger planned. My phone buzzed. Morgan had posted on Instagram. 1 week until dreams come true. Shas crestward bound, shall blessed. I smiled, thinking of the invitation in my bag. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people dig their own graves while you quietly build your escape route. Destiny texted, How'd it go? Better than expected, I replied. Think you can make it to the gala next week? Something tells me you won't want to miss it. Her response was immediate. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Time to show them what the unstable ones can do. The committee votes were unanimous, Dean Oliver said, leaning back in his chair. But before we make the official announcement at the gala, I need to be absolutely certain you understand what you're walking into. I sat across from him, clutching the acceptance letter I wasn't supposed to have yet. You mean the fallout? Your family believes they've successfully sabotaged your chances. They're planning quite the celebration for Morgan. I know. My mother's already ordered champagne. He raised an eyebrow. And that doesn't anger you? Of course it does, I admitted. But I learned a long time ago that anger without strategy is just noise. A knock interrupted us. Damien entered, followed by a woman I recognized instantly. Destiny. Sorry we're late, she said, hugging me tight. Traffic was horrible. Dean Oliver nodded. Good. Everyone's here. Let's discuss the gala. I still don't understand why you wanted me here, Damien said. Because, Dean Oliver replied, we need witnesses who aren't emotionally invested. People who can verify everything that's about to unfold. Destiny pulled out her laptop. I've been doing some digging. Found some interesting emails between Christine and the hospital board where Morgan supposedly volunteered. Let me guess, I said. She inflated her hours? Try invented them entirely. The program she claimed to lead doesn't exist. Dean Oliver's expression hardened. And the other candidates she helped eliminate over the years? 3, Destiny confirmed. All mysteriously withdrew after sudden concerns were raised about their applications. I have the paper trail. Which is why, Dean Oliver said, we're going to handle this carefully. The gala isn't just about announcing a scholarship winner. It's about exposing a pattern. My phone buzzed. Another group text from my mother. Don't forget to wear the blue dress we picked out, and please try to smile naturally in the photos. They're planning a photo shoot before the gala, I explained. Morgan's idea. Perfect, Destiny smiled. Let them set their own stage. Dean Oliver handed me a folder. These are copies of every email your aunt and mother sent to the committee. Notice the timestamps? I flipped through them. They started reaching out months before applications were even open? Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. He pulled up an email on his computer. This is from 3 years ago. Different candidate, same tactics. The girl who dropped out right before the final decision, Damien asked. Yes, she's now at Yale, by the way. Quite successful. Dean Oliver smiled. She's agreed to send a video statement for the gala. My hands started shaking. You're going to expose everything. No, he corrected. I'm going to let them expose themselves. Your job is simply to stay calm and let the dominoes fall. Destiny squeezed my hand. Like I told you, you don't need to fight back. Just let them hand it to you. The gala program has been modified, Dean Oliver continued. I'll be giving a speech about integrity and family support, during which certain emails will be displayed on the screen behind me. Christine will try to spin it, Destiny warned. Let her try, Damien said. The evidence speaks for itself. My phone buzzed again. Morgan this time. Can't wait to see you at the gala. Hope you're not too disappointed. There's always community college. Don't respond, Destiny advised, reading over my shoulder. Let her think she's won. The hardest part, Dean Oliver said quietly, will be maintaining your composure when the truth comes out. Can you do that? I thought about years of subtle cuts wrapped in concern, of achievements diminished and confidence undermined, of Morgan's smirk and Christine's calculated manipulation. Yes, I said firmly, I can do that. Good, because the committee isn't just giving you the scholarship. He handed me another document. We're also awarding you the President's mentorship package, full ride, plus a research funding and direct mentorship from faculty. My hands trembled as I read the details. It was more than I'd dared hope for. That's what they were really trying to get for Morgan, Destiny realized. Indeed. Dean Oliver stood. The gala is in 3 days. Until then, absolute discretion is crucial. As we left his office, Damien caught my arm. Hey, need a date for this takedown? Might help sell the totally clueless vibe if you show up with another candidate. I smiled. Actually, that's perfect. My phone lit up with another Instagram notification. Morgan posting photos of her gala dress. The caption read, "Ready to start my Crestwood journey. Some dreams are just meant to be. Oh, honey, Destiny muttered, reading over my shoulder. You have no idea what's coming? I saved the post, adding it to my growing collection of evidence. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply letting people write their own ending. And this ending was going to be spectacular. Just one more day until my baby gets her dream. Christine's Facebook post popped up on my feed, complete with a professional photo shoot of Morgan in her gala dress. The comment section was flooded with congratulations and heart emojis. You okay? Destiny asked, sprawled across my bed while I finished alterations on my own gala dress. Not the blue one my mother had chosen, but a sleek black number that meant business. I'm fine. Just watching the show. My phone chimed again. This time it was my mother. Morgan's celebration dinner is tonight. Don't be late and please try to be supportive. You don't have to go, Destiny said. Yes, I do. It's their last performance. Might as well enjoy it. The celebration dinner was exactly as expected. Our favourite restaurant, filled with family friends and Morgan holding court at the centre table. My mother had even ordered a custom cake with deheng, congratulations future Crestwood scholar, written in gold icing. Yara, there you are. Christine air-kissed my cheek. We were just telling everyone about Morgan's incredible interview. I'm sure you were, I smiled, taking my seat. Morgan clinked her glass for attention. I just want to thank everyone for their support, especially my mum and Aunt Mary, who've always pushed me to reach for the stars. Tomorrow night's announcement is just a formality. We already know what's coming. More cheers, more champagne. I caught Damien's eye across the room. He'd come as my +1, playing his part perfectly. It must be hard, an elderly family friend whispered to me, patting my hand. But there's always next year. Actually, I said clearly, I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. The table went quiet. Christine's smile tightened. Oh, sweetie, my mother said. We don't want you getting your hopes up. The committee seemed quite concerned about certain issues. What issues would those be, Mum? Well, she glanced at Christine for support. Your emotional stability, for one. Interesting. I pulled out my phone, opening my recording app under the table. Could you elaborate on those concerns? This isn't the time or place, Christine cut in sharply. We're here to celebrate Morgan's achievement. But it hasn't been announced yet, Damien pointed out innocently. Seems premature to celebrate. Morgan's face flushed. The committee practically told me it was mine. Right, Mum? Of course, sweetheart, Christine raised her glass. To Morgan, Crestwood's newest rising star. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Actually, I'm not feeling well. Must be all that emotional instability acting up. Damien, would you mind driving me home? Yara, my mother hissed, don't make a scene. I would never, I smiled. That's not my style. Outside, Damien burst out laughing. Did you see their faces when you mentioned your chances? Classic? Did you get it? He held up his phone. Every word, including that lovely bit about your emotional stability. My phone buzzed. Destiny sending the final gala preparations. Dean Oliver confirmed everything's set. You ready for tomorrow? I thought about Morgan's smug smile, Christine's calculated manipulation, my mother's willing compliance in their scheme. More than ready. Later that night, I sat at my desk writing a letter I'd been composing in my head for years. Dear Mum, tomorrow everything changes. Not just the scholarship announcement, but how you see me. How everyone sees me. I want you to know I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because sometimes the only way to break a pattern is to expose it to light. A knock interrupted my writing. My mother stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. I brought you some tea, she said. For your nerves. Tomorrow might be difficult. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Why did you do it, Mum? Why help them tear me down? She flinched. I was trying to protect you. The pressure at Crestwood. And you've always been so sensitive. No, I cut her off. You were protecting yourself. From Christine, from conflict, from having to stand up for your own daughter. Yara, it's okay, I said quietly. Tomorrow will explain everything. After she left, I finished my letter. I learned strength from your weakness, courage from your fear, and truth from your lies. Tomorrow isn't about winning or losing. It's about finally being seen. And Mum, I hope you're ready for what that really means. Love, your unshakable daughter. I sealed the letter and picked up my phone to post one last thing before the gala. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should have been watching all along. Tomorrow changes everything, Morgan commented almost immediately. Oh, someone's jealous. Don't worry, you can visit me at Crestwood. I smiled, thinking of the honoree invitation hidden in my desk. Let them have their last night of delusion. Tomorrow, reality takes center stage. The Crestwood University ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Morgan held court near the entrance, resplendent in her designer gown, accepting premature congratulations, while Christine beamed beside her. My mother hovered nearby, throwing anxious glances at the door. Ready for this? Damien squeezed my hand as we walked in. I'd arrived fashionably late, wearing my black dress like armor. Born ready. Destiny materialized at my side. Camera ready. Everything's set. Dean Oliver just confirmed the presentation is locked and loaded. The room hushed as Dean Oliver took the stage. Behind him, a massive screen flickered to life. Welcome to our annual scholarship gala, he began. Tonight, we celebrate not just academic excellence, but integrity, resilience, and truth. Christine's smile widened. Morgan straightened her shoulders. In my years as dean, I've learned that success isn't just about grades or extracurriculars. It's about character, about how we handle pressure, face challenges, and treat others along the way. The screen behind him changed, showing an email. Christine's smile faltered as she recognized her own words. We must ensure Yara's application is viewed with appropriate concern. Her mental stability has always been questionable. Another email appeared. Morgan has worked too hard to let an unstable competitor jeopardize her future. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Morgan's face drained of color. Interesting things. Email trails, Dean Oliver continued. They tell stories of their own, stories of systematic manipulation, of orchestrated concern, of calculated character assassination. My mother gripped her champagne glass so hard, I thought it might shatter. But perhaps we should hear from someone who experienced this before. The screen switched to a video. A familiar face appeared, the girl who'd withdrawn 3 years ago. I was told I was unstable, antisocial, a risk. Later I learned these concerns came from one family, targeting anyone who might outshine their daughter. I withdrew under the pressure. But I'm speaking out now because it's happening again. Christine stepped forward. This is ridiculous. We were simply expressing valid concerns. Valid concerns? Dean Oliver raised an eyebrow. Like Morgan's extensive hospital volunteer work? The screen displayed another email, this time from the hospital administrator. We have no record of any such program or volunteer. Morgan's perfectly composed facade cracked. Mum, or perhaps, Dean Oliver continued, we should discuss the multiple recordings we have of certain conversations about taking care of the competition. The audio played crystal clear through the ballroom speakers. Christine and Morgan's victory conversation after my interview, their parking lot plotting, every smug assumption of their success. Stop this immediately, Christine demanded, her voice shrill. Why? I finally spoke, stepping forward. Isn't this what you wanted? Everything exposed, all the truth laid bare. Yara, my mother pleaded, don't do this. I didn't do this, I said clearly. You did, all of you. Every time you chose manipulation over merit, every time you tried to dim someone else's light to make Morgan shine brighter. Dean Oliver cleared his throat. And now, the announcement you've all been waiting for. This year's full scholarship recipient, chosen unanimously by the committee for their academic excellence, genuine character, and extraordinary resilience in the face of systematic opposition. Morgan grabbed Christine's arm. My mother closed her eyes. Please join me in congratulating Yara. The room erupted. Destiny's camera clicked rapidly, capturing every expression. Christine's outrage, Morgan's shock, my mother's dawning horror. Furthermore, Dean Oliver continued over the chaos, Yara has also been awarded our prestigious President's Mentorship Package, including full research funding and faculty mentorship. I walked to the stage, head high, feeling years of diminishment fall away with each step. This is impossible. Christine's voice cracked. She's unstable. She's the highest scoring candidate in Crestwood's history, Dean Oliver finished. And living proof that true strength often comes wrapped in quiet determination. I took the microphone, facing my family. You called me unstable because I didn't break under your pressure. Antisocial because I chose study over schemes. But here's what you never understood. I didn't need to tear anyone down to rise up. You did that all on your own. Morgan ran from the room, Christine following close behind. My mother stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Congratulations, Yara, Dean Oliver said, handing me the official acceptance package. I believe this belongs to you. The applause was deafening, but all I could hear was the sound of truth finally breaking free. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead and letting karma handle the rest. And karma, as it turned out, had perfect timing. The aftermath was immediate and spectacular. As I stood on stage accepting congratulations from university officials, social media exploded. Destiny had live-streamed the entire revelation, and the video was already going viral. You might want to see this, Damien said, showing me his phone. Morgan's carefully curated Instagram account was being flooded with comments. Can't believe you tried to sabotage your own cousin. So much for hard work pays off. Karma is beautiful to watch. Christine emerged from the ladies' room, dragging a red-faced Morgan behind her. This isn't over, she hissed as they passed the stage. We'll appeal the decision. You'll what? Dean Oliver interrupted smoothly. Release more emails? Make more false claims about volunteer work that doesn't exist? The board will hear about this humiliation, Christine threatened. Oh, they already have. A distinguished woman stepped forward, the board chairwoman herself. We watched the whole thing. Fascinating presentation, Lyle. Though disturbing? Christine's face went pale. Mum, Morgan whispered. Let's just go. Not yet. I descended the stage steps. First, I want to thank you both. They stared at me. Thank you for teaching me that success doesn't require cruelty. That strength doesn't mean destroying others. Every time you tried to break me, you just made me more determined. Morgan's lip trembled. I never meant... Yes, you did. I cut her off gently. We both know you did. Yara! My mother's voice cracked as she approached. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. But you didn't, I said. And that's a lesson too. Destiny appeared with her camera. Smile, everyone. This is going in my documentary about academic sabotage and family dynamics. Christine grabbed Morgan's arm. We're leaving. This family is dead to us. No. Morgan suddenly pulled away. I'm done letting you fight my battles. The room went silent as Morgan turned to face me. I knew what they were doing was wrong. I let it happen because it was easier than earning things on my own. I'm sorry. Morgana Elizabeth White. Christine's voice could have cut glass. Save it, Mum. Yale already called. They're rescinding my early acceptance pending an investigation into my application claims. The board chairwoman nodded. All your college applications are under review. Fabricating volunteer work is a serious offence. I watched Christine's carefully constructed world crumble. Years of manipulation, exposed in one evening. The social currency she'd hoarded, worthless now. Yara, Dean Oliver called. The press would like some photos of our new scholar. As cameras flashed, Damien whispered, You didn't just win. You changed the whole game. Family friends who'd been praising Morgan hours ago now crowded around me, their compliments tinged with awkward awareness of their previous allegiances. Every "we always knew you had potential" felt like another brick falling from Christine's wall of influence. My phone buzzed with a text from Destiny. Check Twitter. You're trending. The hashtag #Quiet Revenge was filling with stories from other students who'd faced similar sabotage. My exposure of Christine's tactics had opened a floodgate. Miss Yara, a reporter approached. How does it feel to overcome such systematic family opposition? Before I could answer, Morgan stepped forward. Let me tell you exactly how my family tried to destroy her. It's time someone told the truth. Christine's gasp was audible across the room. Morgan, don't you dare. Or what, Mom? You'll ruin my reputation? Pretty sure we just covered that. As Morgan began detailing years of manipulation to the press, my mother touched my arm. I failed you. Yes, I agreed. But that's not the end of the story. What is? I looked around the room, at Destiny documenting everything, at Damien standing proud beside me, at Dean Oliver watching with satisfaction as justice played out. The end is me succeeding not despite you, but because of you. Every obstacle taught me persistence. Every lie taught me truth. Every betrayal taught me integrity. The board chairwoman approached with a champagne glass. To our newest scholar, who proved that character reveals itself not in victory, but in how we achieve it. As applause filled the room again, Damien grinned. You didn't climb over them. I buried them in their own scaffolding, I finished, remembering his words from before. My phone lit up with one final notification. Morgan had posted a new Instagram story. No filters, no perfect pose, just raw honesty. Congratulations to my cousin Yara. You won by being everything I pretended to be. I have a lot to learn. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, building something so beautiful from the ashes that even your enemies have to acknowledge its worth. And sometimes, just sometimes, it helps others find their truth too. Moving into my dorm room felt surreal. Each box I unpacked represented another step away from the toxicity I'd left behind. Destiny helped me hang fairy lights while Damien assembled my desk. Your mother's called 3 times today, Destiny said, checking my phone notifications. I know. I pinned up the note Dean Oliver had slipped me at orientation. Resilience, when witnessed, is power. Never apologize for that. A knock at the door made us all turn. Morgan stood there, looking smaller somehow without her usual designer clothes and perfect makeup. Can we talk? Destiny and Damien exchanged glances. We'll grab coffee, Damien said, pulling Destiny along. Morgan sat on my unmade bed. I got accepted to State University. Regular admission, no strings pulled. It feels different. Different good? Different real. She twisted her hands in her lap. Mum's in therapy. Mandatory. After the board reported her actions to her employer. She might lose her position at the foundation. And you're telling me this because? Because I'm trying to understand how you did it. Stayed true to yourself when everyone was trying to reshape you. I sat beside her. I had help. Destiny showed me how to document everything. Damien witnessed the truth. Dean Oliver believed in merit over manipulation. I never had real friends, Morgan admitted. Just allies in Mum's games. My phone buzzed again. My mother calling. Morgan noticed. You should talk to her. Aunt Mary's different now. The therapy she started, she talks about you a lot. What about Christine? Morgan's face hardened. She's not speaking to me since I gave that interview exposing everything. Says I betrayed the family. You chose truth over loyalty. That takes courage. No, she shook her head. You showed courage. I just finally faced consequences. Another knock. This time it was Dean Oliver. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know. Your story has prompted 3 other universities to launch investigations into their scholarship selection processes. Seems your experience wasn't unique. Mum's methods were pretty standard in our circle, Morgan confirmed. It's why she was so confident they'd work. Well, they won't anymore. He handed me a folder. The board is implementing new protocols to prevent family interference in selections. We're calling it the Integrity Initiative. They'd like you to consult. My phone buzzed yet again. This time I answered. Mum? Yara, her voice cracked. I'm outside your dorm. I know I don't deserve to be here, but I brought your favourite study snacks. And an apology. A real one. I looked at Morgan, who nodded encouragingly. Come up. Room 342. When she arrived, her arms full of snacks and tears in her eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. My mother, stripped of pretense, just trying to be better. I've been reading about generational trauma, she said, setting down the bags, about how we pass down our fears, our need for control. I didn't protect you because I never learned how to protect myself from Christine? That's no excuse, I said quietly. No, it's not. But it's why I'm in therapy now, why I'm learning to be stronger. You showed me how. Dean Oliver cleared his throat. Family healing takes time, but so does academic excellence, and that's what we're here for. Shall we discuss your first research project? As we talked about my upcoming work, more students stopped by. Some had read about the scholarship story, others had their own tales of family pressure. My room became a kind of impromptu support group. You should start a formal organisation, Damien suggested, returning with coffee. Help other students document and expose academic sabotage. Already on it, Destiny grinned, pulling up a website mock-up. We're calling it Quiet Power? My mother watched all this with wet eyes. You've built something beautiful from our mistakes. No, I corrected her. I built something necessary from your choices. The beauty came from finally being free to be myself. Morgan stood to leave. I should go. My first real college class starts tomorrow, and I actually need to study for it. Hey, Morgan, I called after her. Good luck. For real this time. She smiled, a genuine smile, not the practiced one she'd worn for so long. You too, cousin, you too. As evening fell and my room slowly emptied, I looked at the note from Dean Oliver again. Below it, I pinned my own addition. They called me unstable. Turns out, I was just unshakable, and that made all the difference.
Welcome to All Girl Relationships, where we talk about everyday problems people face in their lives. Let's start the video. My fiancé, Liam, was my first and only relationship. We were high school sweethearts, dated all through college, got engaged at 22, and were supposed to get married at 24. Liam always had a close relationship with my sister, Mary, and I never had an issue with it. I thought their closeness was normal, something I should be happy about, especially after reading stories online about in-laws who don't get along with their daughters' partners. Even when something seems strange to me, like Mary's boyfriend's always being overly jealous and protective of her, I chose to ignore it. I didn't want to connect the dots, even though the truth was always right in front of me. I brushed off my concerns as insecurity, but deep down, I knew my instincts were right all along. In the end, I felt foolish for closing my eyes to the truth when I should have been paying attention. I gave Liam and my sister the space to betray me behind my back, and they did it so cleverly on my wedding day of all days. Everything fell apart for me on what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. If someone had asked me beforehand, I wouldn't have imagined that the people I trusted most would hurt me so deeply and in such a public way, with hundreds of people there. I still remember the moment I realized Liam wasn't going to show up for the wedding. It hit me when I found out he had blocked my number and all my social media accounts. I was in so much pain, and the tears just wouldn't stop. No amount of comfort or apologies from others could make me feel better. I couldn't believe that Liam and my sister had vanished without a trace, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find them. I left Liam message after message in a daze, telling him everything Mary's boyfriend had told me, that Mary was pregnant with his child, but she had tried to make it seem like it was Liam's. I knew if Liam didn't read those messages now, he'd be stuck with Mary for a long time, and that's exactly what happened. He never saw my messages, and I figured they stayed together. I was heartbroken for a year, but one day I realized I needed to move on. I started going to therapy, joined some local clubs, made new friends, got my own apartment, and started living a decent life again. Years have passed since everything happened, and now it just feels like a bad dream. In a strange way, I sometimes feel grateful for what happened. Even though I was 27 when we were about to get married, I see now that I wasn't truly ready. Now I know what I want, and I've found someone who makes me happy. I started dating Adam, who treats me much better than Liam ever did. Things with Adam are going great, and we're planning to move in together and take the next step in our relationship. My life feels normal now, and I realize it's because Liam isn't around to cause chaos. But of course, this story wouldn't exist if everything had just stayed calm. It all started when I got a call from Liam. The number was unfamiliar, so I answered without knowing who it was. I was shocked to hear Liam's voice on the other end. He sounded like he'd been crying, and his voice was shaky. He began the conversation by apologizing for everything. Feeling awkward, I just replied with a quiet, while he kept talking. He said he had finally read the messages I sent him years ago, and that everything made sense now. He regretted everything and asked if we could meet just once to talk. I told him no, that after everything he did, I couldn't trust him anymore. Surprisingly, he didn't argue. He just hung up. I thought that was the end of it, and I felt relieved. I finally got some closure, and it seemed like Liam had gotten the karma he deserved. But unfortunately, that phone call was just the start. The next day, I started getting flooded with calls and texts from my parents, relatives, and even Mary. They all blamed me for ruining a happy marriage. My mom was especially upset, saying it was petty of me to tell Liam everything Mary's ex-boyfriend had told me, because apparently, she and Liam were already building their own relationship. I shouldn't have tried to ruin things, but this made me sure that Liam must have confronted Mary, and something went wrong between them. Honestly, I don't feel a bit of sympathy for someone like Mary, who wrecked my home. Everything that's happening to her is because she couldn't be honest or loyal. Still, I can't help but have a little bit of doubt, even though Liam's family and even Adam are on my side. I really need some advice here. Am I wrong? I talked to Adam more about this because I felt it was time to tell him the whole story. Before, he only knew a few details. I told him about my wedding day, Mary's ex-boyfriend, Liam, and everything that's happened since. Adam was really understanding and supportive. He knew why I was so hurt by how my family was acting in this situation. He even suggested that I should meet Liam and hear what he had to say. I was surprised, but I agreed. I messaged Liam on the same number he used to call me. We talked a little and made plans to meet in a couple of days as he would be flying to my city. I'll keep you all updated. Well, I met Liam today, and everything you guys predicted was right. Mary had lied to Liam because, of course, Liam had more money than her ex-boyfriend, who was still in college when they were dating. Their relationship turned toxic right after Liam proposed because Mary had gotten what she wanted: a bank account. She stopped doing the things she used to with him and just started using him for his money. Liam was crushed. Since they were married, divorcing her would mean losing a lot of his assets. Eventually, though, he found one of the messages I had sent him while going through his old phone, and that confirmed his suspicions. He decided to get their son's DNA tested, just in case, and it turned out the ex-boyfriend was right. Liam kicked Mary out and filed for divorce. Mary is furious now because she had to move back in with my parents and can no longer afford her expensive lifestyle. Liam told me he wanted to meet me to thank me for helping him. He also tried to talk about how he wished things had worked out between us. I told him straight that the only reason we didn't work out was because of him and his lack of loyalty. I guess he finally realized how badly he messed up because he listened to everything I said with his head down in shame. I didn't say much. I just got up and left. Right now, what I'm really thinking about is my relationship with my family. It's heartbreaking how they side with Mary when she's clearly the one in the wrong. It makes me wonder if my relationship with them was ever real. I know they've always favored Mary because she's the youngest, but this is too much. I'm honestly speechless. I think I need some time to figure out what I really want. Adam and I decided to go on a road trip, which lasted about 2 weeks. Luckily, our jobs are flexible. That trip opened my eyes. It made me see my parents for who they really are and how they truly view me. I realized that, to them, I was always just a replacement for Mary. As soon as they got her back, they'd forget about me. This time wasn't any different from the others, except now I saw it clearly and could connect the dots. Their favoritism toward her is so extreme that I wouldn't be surprised if they even encouraged her to have an affair with Liam. As expected, Mary threw a tantrum when she came back, and my parents got mad at me again. I'm sure they also gave her a lot of money, especially since she gave birth to their first grandchild. But, as usual, Mary ran off again, this time with another rich guy, and cut all contact with my parents, leaving them to take care of my nephew. I didn't find out from my parents, though. They started acting sweet and talked about wanting to see me again, which made me suspicious. So I called my cousin, who told me everything. That's when I realized they wanted me to take care of Mary's son until she came back, and then they'd push me aside again. I wasn't going to let that happen. That's when it all clicked for me, and I knew I had to cut them off. So I blocked their numbers. I got back to the city yesterday and also found out that Liam tried to move back in with his parents after losing so much money on divorce lawyers and alimony, but they said no. Like I said before, he deserves it. I don't feel any sympathy for Mary, my parents, or Liam. Mary's going to face her consequences. My parents are now raising my nephew, and Liam's life has fallen apart because he couldn't stay loyal. I have Adam, and my biggest concern now is just our relationship. Thank you. You're definitely for cutting ties with your family. It sounds like a mess, and the sooner you cut them off, the happier you'll be. You also need to trust your gut more, because it can really save you from a lot of heartache. I love how you ended up cutting your family out. I could tell throughout the story that they played a big role in all the problems. I'm glad you realized it and dealt with it at the root. Now on to my situation. I'm 28, female, and live with my husband, who is 30. My mom, who's 61, was diagnosed with early-onset dementia about a year ago. She's been living with us because none of my other family members are willing to take her in. Since I'm a nurse, there's been pressure on me to take care of her, but it's very different when it's your own mom. I know she's going to get worse over time. Right now, she's still enjoying life, watching her favorite movies and playing card games. But she can't be left alone because she's vulnerable and might accidentally start a fire or forget where she is. I have one sibling, an older brother named Larry, who's 37. Until recently, he hasn't helped at all with caring for our mom. Larry lives with his wife, who's 35, and they have 2 kids, ages 12 and 9. I've asked Larry for help a few times, but he always says he's too busy with the kids and their activities. Over the past month, I've been more firm with Larry and told him that she's his mom too, and the least he could do is help out once a week. Now, every Friday, he takes our mom out for the day, usually to get coffee and go for a walk. She loves it and it gives me and my husband a break. But Larry's wife is upset with me. She says I'm taking Larry away from their family, and when he comes home, he doesn't want to help with housework or play with the kids. I told her that's not my fault, and that our mom's care isn't optional. It's not fair for me and my husband to do everything when Larry is fully capable of helping. She suggested we put our mom in a nursing home. I told her we can't afford a nursing home unless she and Larry are willing to split the cost. She said they have better things to spend their money on. I told her, well, tough luck, and that Larry will have to keep helping. She called me a jerk for making Larry help. You're definitely. Taking care of your mom is a huge responsibility for you and your husband. Your brother helping out once a week for a few hours is the least he can do. If he's too tired afterward to help his wife or take care of their kids, that's their issue to figure out. They chose to have kids, so that's not your problem. I'm sure you also have other things you'd like to spend your money on, but here you are providing full-time care for your mom and covering all the costs from what it sounds like. Your brother's wife is being selfish for not trying to understand. But this can't continue like this, it's only going to get harder. Don't let yourself be the only one handling the finances and care for your mom. You and your brother need to work together to find a solution. Of course, you should consider your husband and he should consider his wife. But they don't get the final say. If your sister-in-law doesn't like it, go on vacation and drop your mom off at their house as long as it's safe. Let her see what it's really like to care for someone with dementia. Now, onto my story. My boyfriend, who's 32, and I, 34, are celebrating our 4-year anniversary this month. Since the actual day is on a weekday, we decided to celebrate on the weekend. We both work from home, and we don't live together, so I wanted to surprise him on the actual day with breakfast, a plant he loves plants, and a box of chocolates. I arrived at his place around 7 a.m., knocked on the door, and waited a while for him to answer. I figured he was still asleep. When he finally opened the door, he looked upset. I quickly apologized for waking him up and told him I just brought a few gifts for our anniversary. He just said okay, still looking annoyed, and walked back to his bedroom, leaving me standing there with the gifts. I was shocked by his reaction. I put the things I brought on the kitchen table and was about to leave, but then I heard some noise from his bedroom, and he came back with his pants on. I thought he was going to hug me or something, but instead, he fed his cat and went to the bathroom while I stood by the door. I felt sad about how he reacted and started crying because all I wanted was a little happiness from him. He sighed and asked me what was wrong. I told him I was sad because he seemed annoyed that I was there, and I had hoped he would be a little happy that I brought something for our anniversary. He responded sarcastically, saying he was sorry for not meeting my expectations and that I couldn't expect him to be happy because I woke him up and he hadn't slept well. Honestly, I wasn't expecting a big celebration or even a gift from him. All I wanted was a hug, a kiss, and a simple thank you, which didn't happen. We didn't even get to enjoy breakfast together because I was in such a bad mood after that, so I left his place. So, am I the jerk for waking him up to surprise him? Thank you all for your thoughts, it gave me a lot to consider. I'll try to answer your questions. His sleep schedule. He wakes up when he wants since he's a freelancer. He does struggle with insomnia, which he's working on. Before my visit, he told me he was getting back to a regular sleep schedule and would wake up around 8 or 9, so I didn't think 7 a.m. was too early. Initially, I planned to leave the gifts in his mailbox and text him, but I got excited to see his reaction in person. I admit I should have thought that through more carefully. I don't usually show up like that, but I thought it would be a sweet gesture. Does he usually like surprises? Yes, he does. Keys to his place. I used to have them, but he asked for them back after getting his cat, which he adopted when his grandmother moved to a retirement home. His mom takes care of the cat when he's away, which is why I don't have keys anymore. Some people think it's weird he didn't make another copy, but I don't see it as a red flag. We just didn't think about it. Is he cheating? No, he's not cheating. I didn't give any hints that I didn't trust him. The noise I heard was just him drinking water, making his bed, and putting his pants on. I trust him. For the update, we talked about everything and we both agreed that we were a little in the wrong. I apologized for waking him up after a bad night and getting upset at how he reacted. He apologized for making me feel rejected and said it would have been different if he had slept well. He also mentioned he was touched by the gesture, not the jerk. Look, I'm not a morning person either, so I can be like a zombie when I wake up. But even if I were barely functioning, I'd still give you a hug, say thank you, and let you know I needed a quick shower to fully wake up. After 5 years, you probably know his sleep schedule. A lot of comments are focused on the fact that it was 7 a.m., which is when most people are awake, but since he works from home, his schedule is different. If my partner woke me up at 4 a.m. with a surprise, especially on a day we had already agreed not to celebrate, I'd probably feel the same way. Thanks for wasting our time today. I understand this is a marriage proposal, but we don't approve. Please give up and go home now. That's what his mom said to me when we went to his family's house to announce our engagement. She gave me a cold glare and spoke down to me like I didn't belong. I knew from the start that his parents didn't like me, but I couldn't turn back. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and introduced myself anyway. My name is Cheryl. I'm 29 years old, and I work in the general affairs department of a manufacturing company. I've been dating my boyfriend, James, since last year. He's 4 years older than me, and we work in the same department. James has a gentle look, and his kindness shows whenever he smiles. That's what made me fall in love with him. We both live on our own, so we often spend time at each other's places and enjoy weekends together. We've built a happy relationship. My parents live nearby, so I take James to their house often. They really like him, and whenever he visits, they go all out with meals. James and my dad get along great, and I thought everything would go smoothly when we got married. But James had always hesitated to introduce me to his parents. When I asked him why, he looked uncomfortable. Could you wait a little longer? My parents aren't like yours. I wish I had grown up with parents like yours, he said with a sad expression. I wondered if he had issues with his family, but I decided to give him time. I wasn't in a hurry to get married, so I figured it would be better for him to open up when he was ready. But things don't always go as planned. One holiday, James and I were on our way to our favorite restaurant when something unexpected happened. As the staff showed us to our table, James suddenly seemed nervous and fidgety. "What's wrong?" I asked, noticing how tense he was. He looked away, unsure how to explain, clearly struggling to find the words. I felt nervous at that moment, wondering if I had done something wrong. Just then, a woman in her 53s came over to our table and spoke to James cheerfully. "Oh, James. I haven't heard from you in a while. I was wondering what you were up to," she said. She then turned to look at me, her eyes narrowing as if she was judging me. She had downturned eyes that made it seem like she was glaring. Her hair was neatly tied back, which made her sharp eyes stand out even more. As I gave her a confused look, she let out a little laugh, but it wasn't friendly. "Are you really spending time with someone like her, James? You're such a good kid. If you don't like it, you need to tell her. Otherwise, girls like her won't get the message," she said. James's face tightened in anger. He glared at the woman and firmly said, "I won't allow you to insult her." But the woman gave me a cold look and said, "It's a shame my son has been tricked by a girl like you. Leave him alone right now." After that, she went to the cashier, paid her bill, and left the diner. "What just happened?" I asked, still in shock. James replied in a low voice, "That was my mother. A few years ago, because of her, I had to end a relationship with someone I was thinking of marrying. She didn't want to marry me because of my mom's behavior. I began to understand why she had acted that way." James continued, "If you choose to stay with me, there will be a lot of challenges. Maybe we should break up now. Don't worry, I'll keep things professional at work, and I'll make sure it doesn't cause you any trouble." He looked really upset, and it pained me to see him like that. But I calmly said, "I still want to be with you, James. Do you really want to end things with me?" James seemed surprised by my words. "You know what my mother is like. If you marry me, she will be a burden to you. I don't mind. I think that's part of marriage, and we don't have to live with her, right? If it becomes an issue, I'll ask for a transfer at work, and we can move far away," I said. James stared at me, deeply considering my words, and I gave him a reassuring smile. "Then I feel better about it. Is it strange if I propose to you right now?" he asked. A wave of warmth rushed through me, and I could feel my face turning red. "Are you serious?" I asked, feeling a bit embarrassed. "Yes, of course. I want to spend my life with you," I said, my cheeks growing hotter. "I feel a bit like you've beat me to it, but I'm really happy. I want to be with you forever," James said with a smile, and I finally felt relieved. After that, we decided to tell my parents about our engagement. They were thrilled and asked how we decided to get married. I knew we'd have to mention James's mom at some point, but we tried to avoid the topic by pretending to be shy. However, my mother wouldn't let it go. "So, have you already met James's parents, or is that still in the works?" she asked. James and I were caught off guard. "No, I don't plan to tell my parents about the wedding," James said, causing my mom to gasp in surprise. "Why not?" she asked, shocked. "Because I know they won't approve of our marriage," James explained. At that point, my father gave us a serious look. "That's not acceptable. Marriage is the joining of two families. Your mother would be heartbroken if she found out you got married without her knowing. You both should at least meet with them once. If they still refuse, come talk to us and we'll support you." My dad's words were strong and comforting, but James still looked worried. "I'm fine," I said with a smile, hoping to put him at ease. I thought that if we couldn't get past this challenge, we wouldn't be able to find real happiness together. Later, James told his parents that I would be coming to introduce myself. They didn't seem excited, but he was able to set up the meeting anyway. James's father was a CEO, and they lived in a big house with a large yard. When I stepped in, a big dog started barking. James smiled and petted the dog's chin, calming him down, and then the dog let me pet him too. While we were playing with the dog, the front door opened and his parents came out. His mother had a sharp look that made her seem intimidating, and his father looked just as stern as he stared down at me. "Don't touch our dog, you're disgusting," were the first words his father said to me, without even a hello. He started scolding me right away, and I felt really uncomfortable. "How dare you talk to her like that? If you keep acting like this, I won't hesitate to cut ties with you," James said firmly. His parents gave me angry looks but didn't say anything else unpleasant after that. They invited us into the house. As we walked in, I found it a little strange. Looking at James's face, you'd think he's a kind person because of his gentle eyes, but he didn't look anything like his father. His mother had upturned eyes, but he didn't take after her either. Sometimes traits skip a generation, or kids don't look like their parents at all, so I decided not to think too much about it. Once inside, as I was looking around, a middle-aged man in a suit appeared. "Mr. Eric. Welcome home, young master," he said, bowing to greet James. He had a kind smile that was contagious, and I couldn't help but smile back. "It's been a while, Mr. Eric," James said. "You've grown up so much, young master," Mr. Eric replied, smiling warmly at James. It was the first time I saw James truly smile since we arrived. Then James introduced me to him. "This is Mr. Eric, my father's right-hand man. Honestly, he's more like a father to me than my real dad. My father never paid much attention to me, so Mr. Eric was the one who took care of me. You're the boss's son." "I was just doing my job," Mr. Eric said modestly. "But you've always had a soft spot for me, haven't you?" James added with a smile. "I like you more than my father." James joked with a chuckle, his laugh making me smile for the first time in what felt like forever. As we were talking, his mother suddenly stormed in from the back of the house. "Cheryl, what do you think you're doing? Get over here now," she yelled angrily. She shot a harsh look at Mr. Eric. "What are you doing here, slacking off? How many times have I told you to stay away from Cheryl? I'll make sure my husband knows about this. Now, get back to work." Mr. Eric nodded and replied, "I understand. I'll do as you say." He then left the room. I couldn't help but wonder if being the CEO's secretary meant you had to deal with orders from the wife at home, too. James glared at his mother and spoke up. "Why do you always treat Mr. Eric so poorly? How can you be so rude to someone who's worked so hard for Dad?" "Quiet. You should just listen to your parents. I'll handle that man. Now, both of you, come over here." We followed her to the living room, where James and I sat on the sofa across from his parents. His mother was the first to speak. "Thanks for wasting our time today. I understand you're here to get our blessing, but we don't approve of this marriage. Just give up and go home," she said coldly. I was ready for the rude comments, so they didn't bother me as much as they could have. I calmly responded, "No, thank you for making time to meet with us. James and I love each other, and it's natural for two people in love to get married, don't you think, father, mother?" I smiled politely, but my mother-in-law let out an exaggerated sigh. "You really don't understand marriage, do you?" she said with a mocking tone. "Since our last meeting, I've looked into you. You're a very average woman graduated from an ordinary school, working at a small company. Despite having no real skills, you've managed to trap my James, haven't you? Do you really think someone like you is a good match for our family? In marriage, what matters is a good match." "Mom," James interrupted, "Cheryl and I work at the same company, doing the same job. If you think she's not good enough, then neither am I. We are a perfect match." "You're different, James," his mother snapped back. "There must be a reason you chose that company, but this woman didn't have any other choice." And, she added with a smirk, turning her sharp gaze toward me, "It seems like you come from a poor family. After our money, are you?" My blood boiled at my mother-in-law's comments. I had promised myself I wouldn't let anything she said get to me, but when she insulted my parents, I couldn't hold back. I snapped, "Don't assume we're poor." "Oh, what's wrong with telling the truth?" she sneered. "You live in an old, rundown house that's over 53 years old and drive a car from a decade ago. Did I strike a nerve? I'm just saying what's obvious. This is why I can't stand poor people. My family home was built by my great-grandfather, a carpenter. It's special to us. And as for the car, we like it and take good care of it. That doesn't make us poor. You did your research, right? So, you must know what my parents do for a living." I responded, trying to stay calm. "Yes, I know. Your father is a university professor, and your mother is a high school teacher. They have respectable jobs, but there's still a big difference between our families," she replied. "James is going to take over his father's business one day. Don't think for a second that the daughter of mere educators is good enough to marry my son." She laughed loudly, clearly enjoying herself. Just then, James stood up. His face, normally gentle, had turned into something I had never seen before, cold and furious. "This is pointless. I'm cutting ties with you. I can't forgive you for insulting someone I care about. Cheryl, let's go. There's no reason to stay here anymore, he said, grabbing my hand as we left the house. I'm sorry, he said quietly as we walked away. I'll explain everything to your parents. Please don't say you won't marry me. I nodded, unable to speak. We went straight to my parents' house and told them what had happened. James had anticipated something like this might happen, so he had brought a voice recorder. Everything his mother said was recorded. After listening, my parents thought for a moment and then spoke. Yes, the way his mother talked was awful, but you two are giving up too easily. We'll help you come up with a plan, so keep preparing for the wedding, my father said. If you've both decided to marry, you don't need their approval. But it would still be better if you could get James's parents' blessing, my mother added calmly. Hearing their words gave us hope, and we nodded in agreement. We decided to leave the situation with James's parents to my family and focus on planning our future together. 2 months later, my parents called us and James and I visited my family home. When we arrived, we saw James's parents and Mr. Eric sitting around a small table. As we joined them, the room felt a bit crowded. I thought James's parents might make rude comments again, but they stayed quiet. My father was the one who filled us in on what had been discussed while we were away. James's parents looked into our family, so we decided to do some investigating as well. My father began. His parents married 32 years ago after his mother became pregnant. At that time, his father had just started his company. Mr. Eric, who was an ordinary employee back then, supported his father with dedication. As my father continued, James interrupted. That's all well known in our family. Mr. Eric started as a regular employee but was promoted to my father's personal assistant because of his hard work. My mother mostly raised me on her own while my father struggled to manage the company. It seems Mr. Eric supported not just my dad but my mom, too. My father nodded, acknowledging James's words. Then he said, Mr. Eric did indeed support your family with great dedication. Now, let me shift the conversation a bit. I'm a genetic researcher at the university. Genetically, children inherit half of their DNA from each parent. Even if a child looks very different from their parents, they still receive half of their genes from each one. James gave my father a puzzled look, and I was also confused about where he was going with this. My usually calm father had a serious expression as he addressed James's parents. Please listen carefully. I hired a detective to conduct a background check on your family. Your father works hard, and Mr. Eric has always been there to help. Your mother is fully devoted to housework. It's quite admirable. But when I looked at your family photos, something didn't add up. Neither of your parents have a widow's peak, but you, James, do. This trait is dominant, meaning a child with a widow's peak can only inherit it from a parent who also has one. And don't you think James looks quite a bit like Mr. Eric? Especially with the drooping eyes and widow's peak? That's why I called your parents here today to discuss this. As my father finished explaining, James looked at his parents and Mr. Eric in shock, unsure of what to say. I am a French teacher, just like my mother, and I'm good at French. I never noticed anything different about their foreheads, and even if I did, I'm no expert in genetics. After a long silence, James's father finally spoke. 40 years ago, I was so focused on my work that I neglected my family completely. Then my wife told me she was pregnant. What she didn't know was that I had been hiding my infertility from her. When I found out about her affair, I was furious, and she was just as angry at me for keeping my infertility a secret. After a huge argument, I told her that if I raised her child as my own, I would forgive her. In return, she promised to forgive me for hiding the truth. I made Mr. Eric my personal assistant to keep him close, hoping to stop any further affair between them. After spilling everything, James's father sat there, looking empty, as if all the life had drained from him. Meanwhile, James's mother started to cry. I loved Mr. Eric. I wanted to raise James with him, she sobbed. James is a precious child I had with the man I truly loved. I can't let him marry someone I don't even know. I absolutely won't allow this marriage. As she wiped her tears and glared at me, James gave her a cold, disgusted look. I've always known, Dad, that you never truly loved me, and I've felt Mom's strange obsession with me for years. I even wish sometimes that Mr. Eric was my real father. But now, hearing all of this, you three are disgusting. Mom, I don't want to see you as my parents anymore. Even if Mr. Eric is my biological father, I won't acknowledge him either. I won't forgive any of you. I'm cutting ties with all of you and marrying into Cheryl's family, James said firmly. At his words, his mother jumped up, clinging to him, crying. No, James, you can't. You're mine. I won't let you go, especially not to some common girl. We can live together. I'll allow your marriage, but don't say you're leaving us. As she grabbed onto James's arm, I swatted her hand away. Ma'am, please stop. James is clearly uncomfortable. Do you even realize how much pain you've caused him? Probably not, because all you care about is yourself. If you had just betrayed your husband to be with Mr. Eric, that's one thing, but you've continued to deceive James and hurt him for years. I didn't want to say anything at first, because it's a matter between you three, but I can't just sit here and let you ruin James's happiness. Why don't you put his happiness first? If you don't like me, that's fine, but if you're only trying to control him, you're failing as a mother. From now on, I'll make James happy, so please don't stand in our way. After I said that, his mother started crying again, calling me cruel, but Mr. Eric was there to comfort her. We decided to talk about the future later. A few days later, James's parents officially apologized to us and my parents. They finally accepted our marriage, and James and I turned in our marriage certificate. James moved into my house, and we started our life together. In the end, James's father couldn't forgive his wife's affair. Even though it was too late to ask for compensation, they divorced and split their assets. Mr. Eric also resigned and moved far away with James's mother. Her luxurious life came to an end, and she was forced to live the kind of life she always looked down on. She sometimes sends letters asking James for money, but he ignores them. He has cut all ties with his father since they aren't biologically related, and he has no intention of becoming Mr. Eric's adopted son. Legally, he's still his father's son, but they seem to have accepted that. After Mr. Eric resigned and James's mother was no longer around to support him, the performance of James's father's company dropped. He stepped down, and no one knows where he went after that. A year after marrying James, I noticed that his parent house was up for sale. We had a small wedding ceremony, given the complicated family issues, and only invited close family and relatives. Even so, it was a special day, and I was happy with how it turned out. Now, we have been blessed with a beautiful daughter, and I've quit my job to focus on raising her. My parents visit occasionally to help take care of her, which is a big help. James and I are committed to supporting each other and raising our daughter with love. My name's Lauren, and I just turned 15 when everything in my life changed. Let me tell you about my family. On the outside, we seemed like a normal family. Dad worked really hard, and Mom stayed home. I had a little sister, Olivia, who is 8 years younger than me. Dad was a manager at a big company that actually belonged to my grandmother on my mom's side. Grandma was a really ambitious woman. She started with some laundromats and later grew the business by making laundry detergents and household cleaning products. When she decided to retire, she offered the company to Mom, but Mom didn't want it, so Dad took over. That's when things started to get complicated. I remember the day everything fell apart. I was in my room trying to focus on my homework when I heard Mom yelling at Dad downstairs. "You're nothing but a loser, Frank. This is my house, my family's business. You should be thankful I let you run it." Things got worse in the weeks that followed. Mom and Dad barely spoke, and when they did, it always ended in a fight. I tried to keep Olivia busy, but even at 7 years old, she knew something was wrong. Then came the day that changed everything. I came home from school to find Dad standing in the living room with a suitcase by his feet. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking. "What's going on?" He walked over and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said. "I can't stay here anymore. It's not good for anyone." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "But what about Olivia? What about me?"
I asked.
He pulled back, his eyes full of tears. "I love you both so much. Never forget that. But sometimes, love just isn't enough." He kissed my forehead, then walked over to Olivia, who was watching with wide, confused eyes. He knelt down and hugged her tightly. "Be good for your big sister, okay, pumpkin?" And just like that, he was gone. The door closed behind him, leaving me feeling empty. Mom came home an hour later. When I told her Dad had left, she didn't seem surprised. She just nodded like she had been expecting it. "Good riddance," she muttered. "Mom," I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "How can you say that?" She turned to me with cold eyes. "Your father cheated on me, Lauren. Over and over again." I couldn't take it anymore. That night, everything changed forever. I lay in bed and could hear Mom talking on the phone in her room. She was laughing, sounding happier than she had in months. I wondered who she was talking to, but I was too tired to care. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated after Dad left, Mom hit us with another surprise. One morning, while we were having breakfast, she announced, "I have some news. I'm getting married." I almost choked on my cereal.
What?
"Mom, Dad's only been gone for 3 months." She waved her hand like it was no big deal. "Sometimes true love happens unexpectedly, Lauren. You'll understand when you're older." 2 weeks later, Paul moved in. He was okay, I guess. He was tall and good-looking in a way that made people say, "Oh, he seems nice." But from the start, something about him didn't sit right with me. He made an effort with Olivia, playing games with her and helping with her homework, but with me, it felt like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, things were changing at the company, too. After Dad left, Mom took over, and she brought Paul in to work with her. They seemed to work well together, always talking about business plans. I tried to focus on my own life, school, friends, and the usual teenage stuff, but it was hard to shake the feeling that I was becoming invisible in my own family. Things got worse when Mom and Paul announced they were opening a new branch of the company in another city. One evening, Mom said, "We're moving. It's a great opportunity for the business." Then she added, "Paul and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you stay here." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Stay here? Without you?" I asked, shocked. Mom quickly explained, "The new house won't have much space, and you're almost finished with school. It wouldn't make sense to transfer right before your exams." It felt like a punch to the stomach. "So where am I supposed to live? On the street?" I asked, trying not to cry. "Don't be dramatic, Lauren," Mom scolded. "You'll stay with your grandmother. She's already agreed to it." I stormed off to my room and slammed the door. As I lay on my bed, tears of anger and hurt ran down my face. I couldn't stop thinking, when did I become such a burden to my own mother? The next few weeks flew by, filled with packing boxes and goodbyes. Not for me, though. The tears were from Olivia, who didn't want to leave her friends behind. I helped Olivia pack, trying to stay cheerful for her sake. "Will you come visit us, Laura?" she asked, her big brown eyes filled with tears. I hugged her tightly. "Of course I will, Squirt. You can't get rid of me that easily." The day they left, I stood on the porch with Grandma, watching as the moving van pulled away. Mom gave me a quick hug, and Paul gave an awkward nod. Then they were gone, taking Olivia with them. Living with Grandma wasn't as bad as I had imagined. She was pretty cool in her own way, giving me space when I needed it, but always there with a cup of tea and a kind ear when I wanted to talk. Still, it didn't feel like home. My 20th birthday came faster than I expected. That morning, I woke up feeling strange. I should have been excited, but all I felt was empty. Mom called, of course. "Happy birthday, sweetie," she said, sounding overly cheerful. "I'm sorry we can't be there. Work is just crazy right now. We'll celebrate next month when we visit, okay?" I knew we wouldn't. They hadn't visited once since they moved. "Sure, Mom. Sounds great." Grandma must have sensed how I was feeling, because she really went all out. She let me invite a few friends over, ordered my favorite food, and even baked a cake herself. For a few hours, I almost forgot about everything. The next morning, Grandma called me into her office. She had a serious look on her face that made my stomach drop. "Sit down, Lauren," she said, pointing to the chair across from her desk. "We need to talk." My mind raced. Oh no, is she kicking me out? Where would I go? But then she smiled, reached into her desk drawer, and pulled out a small folder. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Open it." I did, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw what was inside. "Grandma, is this?" She nodded, her eyes sparkling. "The company is yours now, Lauren. I see potential in you. You've got a good head on your shoulders, and I know you'll do right by the business." "But Mom and Paul, they're running it now," I said, still in disbelief. Grandma's face tightened a little. "They're running a branch. The main company, the heart of it all, that's yours now." I sat there, stunned. Me, barely 20, the owner of a multi-million-dollar company. It felt like a dream or maybe a nightmare. I don't know what to say. I finally managed. Grandma reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "You don't have to say anything. Just promise me you'll give it your all." I nodded, still in shock. "I will. I promise." She leaned back, satisfied.
Good.
"Now, I have one more piece of advice for you, and I want you to listen carefully." I leaned in, hanging on to every word Grandma said. "Call your father," she told me. "There's more to the story than you know. Talk to him, even if it's just as a consultant, but hear him out." It took me a whole week to find the courage to call Dad. We decided to meet at a small cafe downtown. When I saw him, my heart tightened. He looked older, tired, but his eyes brightened when he saw me. There was an awkward silence at first, but then everything spilled out: the divorce, Mom's remarriage, the move, and Grandma's gift. Dad listened quietly, his face showing all kinds of emotions. When I finished, he took a deep breath. "Laura, there's something you need to know about the divorce." Then he told me everything. How Mom never respected him, always putting him down and calling him a loser, making him feel worthless. He explained how, after a huge fight, he got drunk and made the biggest mistake of his life. "I cheated on her," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "I regretted it right away, but your mother used it against me. She threatened to take everything, even you and Olivia. She wanted me to leave, give her all the property, and pay alimony." I sat there shocked. This didn't sound like the Mom I thought I knew. "Why didn't you fight it?" I asked. Dad looked at me with sadness and love in his eyes. "Because of you and Olivia. I didn't want you both to go through a messy, public divorce. I thought this would be easier." As we talked, it felt like a huge weight was lifted off my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had my dad back. Before we left, I took a deep breath and asked, "Dad, how would you feel about helping me with the company as a consultant?" His smile was all the answer I needed. The next few months were a whirlwind. I studied for exams, spent long nights cramming, and before I knew it, I was standing on stage at my high school graduation with a diploma in hand. Grandma was in the audience, smiling proudly. Mom and Paul were nowhere to be seen, but by then, I'd learned not to expect much from them. As summer came, I focused on college applications. With Grandma's support and Dad cheering me on from afar, I aimed high. When the acceptance letters started arriving, I could hardly believe it. But the biggest surprise came when I opened the financial aid package for my top choice. Full ride. I stared at the letter in disbelief. Grandma cheered and pulled me into a hug. "I knew you could do it, kiddo." All those late nights and competitions paid off. I decided to major in business management. It seemed like the smart choice, especially now that I had the company to think about. I now had a company to run, and the idea still felt unreal, but I was determined to make Grandma proud. To celebrate my college acceptance, Grandma decided to throw a small party, just the two of us. We got some fancy takeout, and a bottle of sparkling cider. Grandma wasn't about to let me drink champagne, even though I was an adult now. We were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Grandma frowned, clearly not expecting anyone. "I'll get it," I said, putting down my fork. When I opened the door, my stomach sank. There stood my mother and Paul, looking annoyed and impatient. Before I could say anything, they pushed past me into the house. Mom didn't waste time on greetings. "Mother, we need to talk about the company. Now." I stood there, stunned, as Mom launched into a rant. She didn't even look at me, didn't ask about my graduation or college. It was like I wasn't even there. "Why can't we access the main accounts?" she demanded. "And why are you blocking the transfer of funds to our branch?" Grandma's expression hardened. "Because it's not your decision anymore, Kelly. The company belongs to Lauren now. She's the one who will decide its future and manage its finances. The room went silent. I could feel the tension hanging in the air. After Grandma's words, I saw a wave of emotions cross Mom's face, first shock, then anger, and finally, something calculating. Suddenly, her whole attitude shifted. "Lauren's sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with fake kindness. "I've missed you so much. Why don't you come live with us?" I blinked, caught off guard by this sudden change. Mom stepped closer, reaching out like she wanted to touch my arm. Instinctively, I stepped back. "We've settled so nicely in the new city. We have a beautiful house, and there's a room just for you. We could set up a desk and get you a new computer for your studies and work." "No, Mom," I said firmly. "I'm happy here. I have my friends, my school, and Grandma needs me." Mom's smile wavered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Well, if that's the issue, we could always move back here. We could live in our old house, just like before. Wouldn't that be nice?" I shook my head. "It's not about the house, Mom. It's about everything." I could see the anger building in her eyes, barely contained. Before she could say anything, I decided to ask the question that had been burning inside me for months. "Mom, why did you really divorce Dad?" She froze, taken aback. "Well, your father, he cheated on me. Multiple times. I got tired of it. He left us for his mistress and didn't even pay alimony." "That's not true," I said quietly. I said, "Dad told me everything. It only happened once, and it was because of how you treated him. He didn't abandon us, you kicked him out. And he's been paying alimony regularly." Mom's face twisted with anger. "How dare you? You ungrateful little brat. You have no right to interfere in my personal life. Everything here is mine, and I decide who lives where." Grandma, who had been quietly watching, finally stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm, stronger than I had ever heard before. "That's enough, Kelly," she said. "You seem to have forgotten a few things. This house, the company, they belong to me, not you. I gave the company to Lauren because I trust her judgment more than yours right now. I think it's time for you to leave." I watched with mixed emotions as Grandma firmly escorted Mom and Paul out of the house. The door clicked shut behind them, and I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I had lost something today, the last bit of hope I had about my mother. But I gained something to a clear sense of my future and the comfort of knowing I wasn't alone. "What now?" I asked, my voice muffled against Grandma's shoulder. She pulled back and gave me a small smile. "Now, we get back to celebrating your college acceptance. And tomorrow, we start planning for your real future, not the one your mother tried to force on you." The next morning, after the confrontation with Mom and Paul, I woke up to the sound of voices downstairs. Curious, I crept down the stairs and peeked into the living room. To my surprise, Dad was sitting on the couch, deep in conversation with Grandma. I sat down next to them, and Grandma explained why she had called Dad over. "I've been thinking about Olivia," she said. "Your mother, well, I'm not sure she's in the best position to care for her right now. I've suggested your father seek custody of Olivia." I felt a surge of hope. "Really? Dad, are you going to do it?" He ran his hand through his hair, looking both nervous and determined.
"Yeah, I am."
"It won't be easy, but Olivia deserves better than what she's getting now." I couldn't help it. I threw my arms around him.
"Thank you, Dad."
As we pulled apart, Grandma cleared her throat.
"There's more," she said.
"I've hired a private investigator to look into your mother and Paul's affairs." Over the next few weeks, life settled into a strange, new rhythm. I started my college classes, diving into my studies with a focus I had never felt before. Dad started coming over regularly, and we worked on fixing our relationship. It felt good to have him back in my life. Then, about 2 weeks after that conversation, Grandma called us both over. Her face was serious as we sat down. "The investigator's report came in," she said, getting straight to the point. "And it's worse than we thought." She laid out the facts, each one hitting me like a punch. Mom had been cheating on Dad for years, long before the divorce. Her affair with Paul had started while she was still married to Dad. There were hotel receipts, records of expensive gifts, all of it painting a clear picture. But that wasn't even the worst part. Paul is a con man, Grandma said, her voice firm. He's done this before. He charms wealthy women, convinces them to move their money, and then runs off with it. I felt sick. So, when they wanted to move the company's money, Grandma nodded.
Exactly.
He was planning to steal it and disappear. We sat in silence, each lost in our thoughts. Finally, Grandma said we needed to confront Mom with the truth. We set the meeting for the next day. Mom arrived at Grandma's house, looking annoyed and impatient. Her expression changed when she saw Dad was there too. What followed was one of the hardest conversations I've ever been part of. Grandma laid out all the evidence, the affair, Paul's history of fraud, and his plan to steal from the company. With each piece of information, I watched Mom's face, hoping to see some guilt or understanding. But all I saw was denial. "This is ridiculous," Mom said, sounding defensive. "Paul loves me. He would never do that. You're all just jealous of our happiness." Dad tried to reason with her. "Kelly, please look at the facts. Think about Olivia. Is this the kind of man you want around our daughter?" But Mom wouldn't listen. She stood up, her face red with anger. "I don't have to listen to this. Paul is a good man, and I trust him completely. You're all just trying to ruin my life." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. As we sat there, I realized something: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a long, hard battle. But looking at Dad and Grandma, I knew I wasn't facing it alone. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional ups and downs. With Grandma's strong support and her legal expertise, Dad filed for custody of Olivia. I tried to stay focused on my studies, but it was hard not to get distracted by everything happening around me. The day of the custody hearing came, and I insisted on being there. The whole thing was tough. Mom's lawyer tried to make Dad look like he wasn't involved in our lives, but our lawyer was ready. He showed proof of Dad's regular alimony payments, how he had tried to keep in touch with us, and the stable life he had now. Then came the big shock. The private investigators' report about Paul's criminal past and their plan to steal from the company. I watched Mom's face as the truth came out first. She looked shocked, then angry, and finally, lost. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. When the judge gave full custody of Olivia to Dad, I felt a mix of emotions: relief that Olivia would be safe, but also sadness that it had come to this. As we left the courthouse, Olivia in Dad's arms, Mom approached us. "This isn't over," she hissed, her eyes full of anger. Grandma stepped in between us. "Yes, Kelly, it is. Go home." Things only got worse for Mom after that. The judge ordered her to pay child support to Dad for Olivia. It was a huge shock for her, since she'd always thought she'd be the one receiving support, not paying it. I threw myself into my studies and learning more about the company, trying to stay away from the family drama. But I couldn't help feeling a bit satisfied when I heard that Paul had left Mom, running off with another woman, and a large chunk of Mom's personal savings. One evening in autumn, Dad called me. His voice was tense with emotion. "Your mother showed up at my place today," he said. "She wants to make up, said she made a mistake, and wants us to be a family again." My heart tightened. Part of me, a small part, wanted him to say yes, wanted things to go back to how they used to be. But I knew better now. We'd all been through too much. "I told her no," Dad said firmly. "I told her that ship sailed a long time ago and that I wouldn't put you or Olivia through that again." I let out a breath. I didn't realize I was holding. "Good," I said, surprised at how strong my voice sounded. "You deserve better, Dad. We all do." There was a pause, and then Dad spoke again. I could hear him smiling. "When did you get so wise, Laura?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. "I learned from the best." After I hung up the phone, I looked around my room at Grandma's house. My textbooks were scattered across the desk next to a stack of company reports, and photos of me with Dad and Olivia smiled back from the bulletin board. This wasn't the life I imagined a year ago. It wasn't perfect, there was still a lot to figure out and plenty of challenges ahead, but it was real. It was mine. I thought about Mom, now alone after all her plans and manipulations. I felt a little pity, but it was mostly replaced by a sense of justice. She made her choices, and now she had to deal with the consequences. As for me, I had a family that loved me, a company to run, and a future full of possibilities. It wasn't the path I expected, but standing at the start of my new life, I realized something important. Time flew by as I balanced college and managing a multi-million-dollar company. Before I knew it, I was halfway through my degree, buried in textbooks and financial reports. The weekdays were filled with lectures and late-night study sessions, but the weekends were sacred. Every Sunday, I packed my bag and headed home to Dad and Olivia. The moment I walked in, Olivia would run to me, yelling, "Laura," and tackle me with a hug. At 12, she was all long legs and boundless energy. Dad would step out of the kitchen, usually wearing an apron, just in time for dinner. He'd grin and say, "Just in time for a meal." Those weekends became my anchor. We'd eat dinner together, with Olivia excitedly talking about her week at school, while Dad and I discussed the company. After Olivia went to bed, Dad and I would often stay up late, going over business strategies. Thursdays were always spent at Grandma's, where she cooked up a feast, filling the house with the smell of roast chicken and apple pie. After lunch, we'd sit on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. "I always knew you had it in you, Lauren," Grandma would say, squeezing my hand. As graduation got closer, I felt both excited and nervous. Dad, true to his word, was running the company smoothly while also preparing me to take over. One evening, he told me, "I'm ready to hand over the reins whenever you are." I hugged him tightly.
Thank you, Dad.
For everything. Life wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges ahead, decisions to make, and a company to manage. But as I looked at my little family, Dad, Olivia, and Grandma, I knew we could face anything together.